Chapter 706. Sensing the aura of the god-slaying tool. The god-slaying Xiao Bai is about to return. When Golden Saber waved the dazzling golden machete toward Bufang, the system's solemn voice resounded in Bufang's mind. In that instant, Bufang was slightly stunned. The god-slaying Xiao Bai? Could it be Xiao Bai? Bufang recalled Xiao Bai, who had a stomachache the last time. Could it be that Xiao Bai was about to return? As the system's voice fell, Bufang realized that in front of him, a figure was actually slowly materializing and solidifying. It was as if someone had drawn a sketch in the air, and a figure appeared out of thin air. Golden Saber waved the machete, and a dazzling golden light shone. A terrifying energy instantly exploded. The god-slaying tool's power was incomparably strong. Not only could it increase true energy, but it could also deal a huge blow to the creatures of the netherworld. Golden Saber was also forced into a corner by Bufang, and he directly waved the god-slaying knife. With a black turtle constellation walk and the soul of Tao Tai, Bufang might not be able to match up to him in terms of true power, but in terms of fighting power and defense, he was not weaker than Golden Saber. An opponent like Fang Fu had to be fast and ruthless. Before the enemy could even react, he had to completely obliterate him. This was the reason why Golden Saber had directly used the god-slaying knife. Originally, Golden Saber had intended to leave this huge gift for the creatures of the netherworld in the restaurant. Boom! A terrifying explosion instantly broke out. The entire ground seemed to have caved in at the moment of the collision. Smoke and dust rose like a mushroom cloud, blocking everyone's sight. Everyone was shocked by the power that burst out, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. With this kind of power, many people thought that Bufang had already been smashed into minced meat. The ground seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. However, very quickly, everyone's eyes narrowed because they discovered that within the surging smoke and dust, there was a huge figure blocking in front of Bufang. It was a huge and fat body, and its entire body seemed to be wrapped in bronze armor. The patterns on the armor were strange, and it covered the body that was like a big ball. It was a little bloated and a little comical, but unknowingly, everyone felt a terrifying pressure spreading out. Golden Saber's scarlet eyes, which were wrapped in armor, suddenly shone brightly. As the smoke and dust dissipated, he finally saw the scene in the arena clearly. The god-slaying saber that he had slashed down was actually blocked by that fat lump of metal. This made him feel somewhat incredulous. His Golden Saber's sure kill slash was actually blocked by an iron lump that had appeared out of nowhere. Amidst the smoke and dust behind the metal lump, Bufang carried a black wok and glanced at Golden Saber indifferently. Golden Saber climbed up from the ground, and a part of the golden armor on his chest caved in. His scarlet eyes flashed. Netherworld creature? This protector didn't look for you. You actually dare to show your head. A cold voice rang out. In the next moment, Golden Saber's figure disappeared. Golden Saber drew a long blade light in the air, slashing down towards you. The god-slaying saber was specially used to deal with the netherworld creatures. The destructive power contained in the attack was even more effective against the netherworld creatures. Yu's fighting ability was somewhat beyond Golden Saber's expectations. The great void of the netherworld creatures. However, Golden Saber was still not weak because he controlled the god-slaying saber. The 50 golden armor guards finally made their move. They didn't expect that Protector Golden Saber would actually fall into a bitter battle. Dealing with a little chef, they actually fell into a bitter battle in an instant. This was really somewhat inconceivable. These golden armor guards suddenly took out the long blades from their backs and quickly rushed out, rushing toward Xiao Bai and Bufang in the distance. The long blades were pulled on the ground that had long been turned into ruins, making a clanging sound, and sparks flew everywhere. The aura of these golden armor guards was very strong, and their auras were very frightening. Troublemakers, obliterate! Xiao Bai's mechanical and cold voice rang out. His eyes turned ash gray and instantly became blood red. The metal wings on his back spread out, looking even more ferocious than before. Looking from afar, Xiaobai seemed to have turned into a cruel demon, and Xiaobai had indeed become a lot more murderous. If it was before, Xiaobai might directly say that he would be stripped as an example to others. However, the current Xiaobai, once he opened his mouth, he would obliterate, extremely domineering. The metal wings flapped, and a heavy pressure filled the air. Xiaobai carried his fat body, taking big steps and running fast. His speed was as fast as lightning. Soon, he charged into the group of golden armor guards. Boom! It was as if everything had become slow. Xiaobai took one step on the ground, and the scarlet light in his eyes skyrocketed. A puppet-like punch blasted out. Buzz, a golden armor guard's long blade, cut out horizontally, slashing on Xiaobai's armor. Sparks burst out, but it did not leave any wound. Xiaobai's fist smashed on that golden armor guard's body. Swoosh! The armor on the golden armor guard's body cracked, scattering in all directions. His body was also sent flying by Xiaobai's punch. The long blade fell on the ground, making a clanging sound. Two golden armor guards raised their long blades horizontally, slashing across the ground, wanting to prop up Xiaobai. However, Xiaobai just clawed with his two hands. His big hands were like palm leaf fans, grabbing the heads of the two golden armor guards. With a fierce swing, the two golden armor guards instantly collided. Coughing blood, they were thrown out by Xiaobai. Bang! 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 The golden armor guards charging over were like clay chickens and pottery dogs, being thrown away by Xiaobai. After the upgrade, Xiaobai's fighting ability seemed to have become even more terrifying than before. Bu Fong carried the black turtle constellation walk, watching from afar. Seeing this scene, he gently exhaled. It was still the same familiar smell, and it was still the same familiar recipe. The corner of Bu Fong's mouth twitched. Fighting and whatnot was too tiring. It was better to let Xiaobai go. Then, with a thud, Bu Fong put away the black turtle constellation walk, slowly walking toward the restaurant. In the end, he came to the restaurant's entrance, pulled a chair, and sat down. That calm and indifferent appearance made people think that he was here to watch a show. In fact, Bu Fong was not much different for watching a show. The surrounding people all had a strange expression. Why did the situation suddenly become a little out of control? A domineering and ferocious puppet. That blackened creature of the netherworld. The restaurant really had a lot of trump cards. The golden armor guards all rushed out, rushing toward Xiaobai. Nangong Wuk, who was mixed in the crowd, suddenly slowly moved toward Luo Danqing, who was covered in blood like a dead dog. Luo Danqing was really too weak. The golden knife was too domineering, and with his strength, he could not resist at all. Fortunately, he was not beaten to death. Nangong Wuk took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to them, sneakily carrying Luo Danqing on his back. Spreading his legs, he madly ran toward the restaurant. It seemed that a golden armor guard had noticed him. Killing intent emerged, and with a turn of the long knife, it slashed down toward Nangong Wuk. Boom! Xiaobai's huge fist smashed down, smashing the golden armor guard, who was about to sneak an attack on Nangong Wuk, to the ground. Then he raised his hand. The golden armor guard's mouth was bleeding like a dead dog. With a swing of his hand, that golden armor guard fell far away. 50 golden armor guards, in an instant, were brutally killed by Xiaobai, and more than 10 were seriously injured. The remaining golden armor guards looked at each other, then stepped out according to the mysterious patterns. Their energy burst forth, resonating with each other in the sky, as if forming a mysterious array. The formation formed by the 30 golden armor guards condensed a huge golden armored giant in the sky. With the machete in his hand, he roared at Whitey. Boom! Boom! Golden Knife held the god-slaying knife, his eyes filled with madness. He rushed into the sky, suppressing you. The suppression of the god-slaying knife on the netherworld creatures was really too strong. Even with the help of the Lord Go's dog hair, you still felt a wave of suppression. The pitch-black hair spear broke under the slash of the god-slaying knife. The knife's power did not decrease, and it continued to move toward you. Xiao Bai's scarlet eyes turned, looking at Golden Knife in the sky. Staring at the god-slaying knife in Golden Knife's hand, he suddenly went berserk, discovered the god-slaying knife. Kill. Chapter 707. Outside the Pill Palace, the wind was blowing, rolling up the fallen leaves that were falling due to the late autumn. A figure wearing a coat, his sleeves swaying in the wind, took a step forward, stepping on the solid ground. The figure wore a conical bamboo hat that covered his face. However, the white hair that flowed down revealed his old age. Pill Palace. The figure stood at the entrance and raised his head. Looking at the towering city wall in the distance, he sighed softly. There was a blade of grass in his mouth, and when his mouth moved, the grass swayed along with it. What a pity. The Pill Palace is the holy land of alchemists, but now it has fallen to this state, and even the hidden dragon royal court has their eyes on it. Sigh. Raising his head, the face under the bamboo hat was revealed. It was Chu Changsheng, who had rushed over from the Valley of Gluttony. He looked at the majestic city wall, his face revealing a touch of sadness. Compared to the Valley of Gluttony, the Pill Palace was really much weaker. Perhaps in the near future, the Pill Palace would be completely controlled by the royal court. Forget it. The Valley of Gluttony can't even protect itself now, so I can't care so much. I just need to find that little girl and bring her back. Protecting the inheritance is the most important thing. Those bastards from the royal court. Chu Changsheng sighed and continued to move forward. Soon, he was close to the majestic city. The golden armor guards were scattered by the impact. Some of the golden armor guards were dead, and some were injured. Everyone's armor was cracked and shattered. They looked at Whitey, who was like a demon god, and their eyes were filled with fear. It was too terrifying. This big guy was really too scary. The golden armored guards were good at building arrays, but their array was destroyed by Xiao Bai's violent attack. That terrifying fellow fiercely swatted down with his palm leaf fan like palm, tearing apart the armors on their bodies, causing their bodies to be exposed. The golden armored guards felt wronged. Their golden armor was their pride, but this puppet actually ripped off their armor while they were still alive. Their heads could be broken, their blood could flow, but their golden armor could not be ripped off. Boom! Xiao Bai's figure suddenly disappeared, and in the next moment, he rushed over like a violent, demonic beast. Several golden armored guards were sent flying in all directions. The armor on their bodies exploded in the air, revealing their shining white bodies. A Jinjiaoui slashed at Xiao Bai's body. His eyes were filled with the color of iron and blood. They were the army of the royal court Holy Land, the division of Bloodwolf. Even if they couldn't defeat the other party, they still wanted to bite off a piece of meat from the other party. With a clanging sound, the saber slashed on Xiao Bai's body. Xiao Bai's scarlet eyes swept and immediately fell on the Jinjiaoui. With a turn of his neck, the sharp spear on top of his head aimed at the Jinjiaoui. Strip boom! The palm that was like a cattail leaf fan suddenly slammed down. Suddenly, the long saber in the golden armor guard's hand was directly smashed into pieces that filled the sky and scattered in all directions. Crack! The golden armor was ripped off. That Jinjiaoui was smashed away naked. His body drew a beautiful arc in the air, and he coughed up blood. Holding the golden armor in his hand, Xiao Bai's round abdomen suddenly turned, revealing a black hole. Grabbing the golden armor, he stuffed it into the black hole. With a crack, that golden armor was swallowed. And at this moment, the 50 golden armor guard were all beaten like dogs in the water, falling on the ground and howling. Some of them didn't bring clothes, so they awkwardly covered their lower bodies, looking incomparably miserable. While coughing blood, they still had to cover their embarrassing places. What kind of enemy had they encountered? Could they just stretch out their heads and directly slash? Did they have to humiliate people like this? The nether energy on Yu's body began to fade. Although the Lord Go's dog fur could let her burst out most of her strength, there was a time limit. The dark blue flame almost completely burned the dog fur. And once the dog fur was burned, Yu's strength would once again bear the restrictions of the hidden dragon continent's law. Nethery's eyes, which were as black as ink, also revealed a trace of solemnity. Rumble, rumble. Her long hair was like a long spear, constantly whistling and slashing. Nethermite. Yu's hair fluttered, her eyes cold and ruthless. Raising her hand, she patted at Golden Saber, who was waving the golden saber in the distance. Buzz. An invisible wave of energy instantly spread out. Boom! Golden Saber's body, which was moving horizontally, suddenly stopped. He felt a huge pressure fall from the sky, invisible and intangible. What? Golden Saber's face changed. He felt like his body had sunk into a swamp. It was really difficult for him to move. Moreover, the terrifying attacks kept coming, making him really uncomfortable. The soul ladder above his head bloomed with radiance, reflecting the stars and sending down beams of light, dispersing a lot of the pressure. It's a power Upanishad attack. This great ethereal's identity isn't ordinary. Golden Saber's eyes, which were wrapped in the armor, suddenly flashed with red light. Not all great ethereals of the netherworld could use power Upanishad attacks. Only the legendary members of the 12 clans of the netherworld had that kind of power. This woman in front of him was definitely a descendant of one of the great clans of the netherworld. Thinking about this, Golden Saber's eyes instantly revealed a fanatical look. He did not think that this trip would have such a surprise. If he could capture a member of the 12 clans of the netherworld to the royal court, it would be a big bargaining chip. Therefore, Golden Saber went berserk. His surroundings suddenly exploded, and a halo of energy spread out, blocking dark might. The ground under his feet cracked, and Golden Saber's figure dashed toward you in the sky. Even if the other party was a beauty. However, in Golden Saber's eyes, the so-called beauty was just a pink skeleton. Kill! A roar, like a beast's roar. The god-slaying saber's dance. Strange lines twinkled as the saber slashed horizontally. Crack! The blue veins on the side of Yu's eyes deepened. A monstrous amount of nether energy erupted from her hands. Nether Ghost Rush. Yu softly roared. She raised her hand, and suddenly, a blurry figure seemed to appear behind her. That figure was high up above, looking down on the common people. Boom! Golden Saber's eyes instantly widened. Before the Golden Saber could slash horizontally, he was sent flying by a huge force. He could not resist this power. This was actually a profound meaning attack. This woman, Golden Saber's figure paused for a moment, then like a cannonball, he shot toward the ground. His eyes stared at you. However, in the next instant, in the void, a huge figure suddenly flew over. That Golden Saber felt a wave of terrifying threats sweeping over, causing his armor to tremble. Boom! Golden Saber felt as if he had been hit by a terrifying demon beast. He, who had been smashed down like a cannonball, was instantly sent flying again. A wild and tyrannical iron puppet floated in the void. The metal wings on its back spread out, like a rock spreading its wings. With a loud bang, Golden Saber's figure smashed into the ruins. Smoke and dust billowed. Xiaobai tilted his head, the sharp horn on top of his head emitting a cold light. Everyone was stunned. Bufong was also a little surprised, his eyes looking at the incomparably tyrannical Xiaobai in the void. Was this still the Xiaobai he knew? Why did he become so manic after evolving? Xiaobai, you've changed. Bufong thought to himself. God-slaying Xiaobai's mechanical voice rang out. Boom! The ruins exploded. Golden Saber carried the god-slaying saber, walking out of the ruins. The look in his eyes became more and more violent. Boom! However, before he could finish speaking, a terrifying pressure descended again. A huge figure suddenly fell from the sky, smashing hard on the ground. Golden Saber was sent flying again. What the F***CK? Golden Saber's face was constipated. Couldn't you let him finish showing off? Xiaobai's metal wings slightly spread, and the ferocious spikes on his back shook. But a moment later, Xiaobai shot out once again. Golden Saber flipped, his body flying far away from the ground. He straightened his body and stared coldly at the huge lump of metal that was charging towards him. The golden armor on his body was a little broken, with cracks all over it. "How dare you damage my golden armor? Unforgivable!" Golden Saber waved the god-slaying saber, roaring. In the sky, Nethery had a puzzled expression as she looked at Golden Saber, who had suddenly shifted his opponent. Her long hair slowly drooped down, and her veins dispersed. She had once again recovered her beautiful appearance. She slowly descended, landing in front of the restaurant. Her face looked a little tired. She looked at Bu Fong, who was leaning against the door. Her eyes moved. "Bu Fong, I'm hungry," you said. At this moment, Bu Fong was watching the battle in the sky. When he heard Yu's weak voice, he was slightly stunned. Looking at Yu, whose face was as pale as a sheet of paper, he frowned. He took out 3 spicy strips from the system dimensional bag and dripped a drop of crystal source purple essence on each spicy strip. The crystal source purple essence contained rich essence energy, which was enough to help you recover. "Here, eat a spicy strip to calm down," Bu Fong said. Nethery looked at the spicy strip and pouted her lips. Then, she took it and began to eat it happily. Bu Fong turned his head and continued to watch the battle. Xiao Bai's increase in strength puzzled him. "System, how is Xiao Bai's fighting capacity after his upgrade?" Bu Fong asked. The system didn't answer him immediately. After staying silent for a while, it said, "Xiao Bai swallowed the hidden dragon royal quartz god-slaying equipment and obtained the divine energy inside. Now his strength can be compared to a divine soul realm expert with a 7-step soul ladder. Every time he wants to upgrade, he needs to swallow 2 pieces of god-slaying equipment." The system's serious voice arose, explaining to Bu Fong the change in Xiao Bai's strength. Bu Fong's face became strange. God-slaying equipment? Could it be the blade in the golden lump's hand? No wonder Xiao Bai kept attacking him. Also, the system said that Xiao Bai needed to swallow the god-slaying equipment to upgrade, and only the hidden dragon royal court had the god-slaying equipment. Did it mean that he would have to fight against the royal court? Bu Fong rubbed his hair. He thought that a lazy fat dog was hard enough to serve, but now the obedient Xiao Bai had become so picky. Why was life so difficult? Bu Fong sighed, and just as he was sighing, Xiao Bai opened his metal wings again, clutching Golden Saber's neck and rubbing him against the floor. It was Xiao Bai's classic fighting style, the rubbing technique. Golden Saber roared. However, Xiao Bai lifted him up and flung him far away. Ding, ding, ding. However, at the moment he was flung away, Xiao Bai grabbed the god-slaying saber's hand. His fan-like palm rubbed against the god-slaying saber, creating so many sparks. Golden Saber's eyes widened in the air. He suddenly understood Xiao Bai's purpose. "Roar! You iron lump, you dare to covet this protector's god-slaying saber. Go die!" Golden Saber roared. However, before he could finish his roar, Xiao Bai's fan-like palm grabbed his head. His golden helmet was instantly grabbed. His 5 fingers dug into the helmet, causing it to crack. Troublemaker, strip as an example to others. Boom! His palm suddenly exerted force. In the next instant, the helmet was directly crushed. Chapter 708. With a loud bang, Golden Saber's helmet was directly crushed into pieces. With a long hissing sound, Golden Saber's fist landed on Xiao Bai's body, creating a deafening explosion. The 2 figures separated in the air, landing on the ground. Smoke and dust billowed, filling the air with thick smoke. Within the smoke and dust, scarlet rays of light burst forth. In the next moment, 2 figures walked out of the ruins. Xiao Bai's tyrannical figure appeared, and scathed. His scarlet eyes twinkled, and the pair of metal wings on his back slightly flapped. Under the sunlight, they shone brilliantly. On the other side, within the smoke and dust, a figure slowly walked out. A low and cold voice echoed. "You really deserve to die. You actually crushed this protector's helmet. You're forcing me to." Boom! A gust of wind roared, revealing the figure in the smoke and dust. Everyone saw that figure clearly. Instantly, their eyes shrank as they sucked in a breath of cold air. This guy, what the hell was he? Everyone felt a chill run down their spines, and their bodies began to tremble. Even Bu Fong, who was leaning against the door, was a little bewildered after seeing Golden Saber's appearance. This guy, he's not a human. Bu Fong was surprised. Golden Saber really wasn't a human. His helmet was crushed, revealing his head. That head was hairy, full of fluff. His eyes were scarlet, full of wrinkles, and his skin was rough. It was incomparably ferocious. It was a wolf's head, a black wolf's head, with sharp teeth and a ferocious aura. Obviously, this Golden Saber wasn't a human. He was a wolf, or a wolf-like humanoid creature. Golden Saber shook the wolf's head, his nostrils puffing out white gas. He had been hiding his appearance, but he didn't expect that under such circumstances, his helmet would be crushed by an iron puppet. He didn't know that he would reveal his true identity. Unforgivable. The 13 golden armor protectors weren't allowed to reveal their identities. The flames of anger burned fiercely, making the golden armor on Golden Saber's body rumble. Xiao Bai strode forward, his feet stepping on the ground, causing the ground to shake continuously. Godslayer. Xiao Bai's eyes locked onto the god-slaying saber in Golden Saber's hand. It was obvious that Golden Saber had also discovered Xiao Bai's target. This made him even more shocked and furious. The god-slaying saber was something that belonged to the sacred grounds. This puppet actually coveted the god-slaying saber. It was simply unforgivable. Die! Boom! The ground cracked, and a huge pit suddenly appeared. In the next instant, Golden Saber's figure shot out explosively, turning into a straight line as he charged toward Xiao Bai. The god-slaying saber in his hand burst forth with terrifying energy, and saber energy filled the air. There was a tearing noise. The god-slaying saber slashed out, aiming at Xiao Bai's head. Not only could the god-slaying saber suppress the netherworld creatures, but more importantly, the god-slaying saber was much stronger than ordinary weapons. This was because the divine energy contained within it was extremely terrifying. A loud clanging sound rang out. Xiao Bai stood on the spot. Raising his fan-like hand, he suddenly grabbed the god-slaying saber that Golden Saber was slashing towards him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. There seemed to be white energy rising from Xiao Bai's palm. Xiao Bai's scarlet eyes turned, landing on Golden Saber. Golden Saber's wolf head's expression changed, and he let out an angry roar. Saber energy wreaked havoc from his entire body. On Xiao Bai's chubby head, a black hole instantly appeared. The black hole floated, and like a Tao Tai, it absorbed the saber energy that filled the sky into it. There was a loud bang. The black hole suddenly burst forth with a terrifying force, pushing Golden Saber so hard that his entire face changed. Xiao Bai's hand grabbed the god-slaying saber, and his eyes flashed. Golden Saber roared, and a fist smashed onto Xiao Bai's head. Xiao Bai's head tilted. In the next instant, he flipped his hand and punched Golden Saber's face. With a bang, Golden Saber was smashed into a daze, and fresh blood directly spurted out from his wolf's nose. Golden Saber did not let go. The god-slaying saber could not be snatched away by the iron lump in front of him. Hence, he did not let go. He punched once, and Xiao Bai punched once. In the eyes of the audience, the two began to exchange blows that were like child's play. Xiao Bai's eyes flashed. With a final punch, Golden Saber instantly spurted out fresh blood, filling the sky. The spikes on Xiao Bai's back shook, and his fan-like hand reached out, grabbing Golden Saber's head. Once again, he pressed him against the ground. Moreover, crack! With a cracking sound, the armor on Golden Saber's body was actually torn off by Xiao Bai. Boom! This armor seemed to be very heavy. When it landed on the ground, it directly crushed the ground. Boom! 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 Pieces of golden armor were single-handedly ripped off by Xiao Bai, then smashed on the ground. Golden Saber seemed to have lost his will to live, but he did not struggle. Just like that, he quietly waited for Xiao Bai to strip him of his clothes. The surrounding people were a little dumbfounded. Some of them were even more excited. The crazy clothes-stripping demon was back. That's right. It's him. It's him. It's him. The Xiaobai who stripped countless people. The familiar smell, the familiar formula, the familiar action. Nangong Wuk carried Luo Danxing, who was like a stray dog, into the restaurant. Luo Danxing leaned against the door, his breath weak. Nangong Wuk spread his legs, sitting on the floor in front of the restaurant, watching the battle with great interest. When he saw Xiaobai tear off Golden Saber's armor piece by piece, he was so excited that he almost jumped up and cheered. Brother Bai, you're really fierce, worthy of being the puppet that I, Nangong Wuk, have taken a fancy to. Nangong Wuk waved his fist, saying excitedly, no matter who it was, he would strip them. Boom! The god-slaying saber finally fell into Xiaobai's hands. Perhaps because of the stripping, Golden Saber, who had lost his will to live, gave up on holding the god-slaying saber. He chose to escape from Xiaobai's demonic claws. Thus, he gave up the god-slaying saber and chose to save himself. However, it was already a little too late. The armor on his body was basically stripped, leaving only a pair of golden pants. The material of those pants was made of the incomparably sturdy golden natural silk. It was not something that could be easily torn. Without the restraint of the golden armor, the energy on Golden Saber's body seemed to become even more terrifying. Even the expression on his face seemed to have entered a state of madness. The god-slaying saber. That is a weapon that belongs to the royal court. Each of them is branded with the aura of the royal court's weapon. It's useless even if you take it away. The royal court's experts will follow the aura of that weapon to find you forever and hunt you down. Golden Saber's wolf head and body appeared. His pitch-black body was also furry. The fur on his abdomen was white, and the fur on his back was black. However, in the middle of the black, there was a streak of white. It looked quite ferocious and handsome. If Golden Saber was a spirit beast, how could a spirit beast speak? However, if he wasn't a spirit beast, then what did this fellow have a wolf head on his head mean? Many people were puzzled. Bufang was also very curious. It was the first time he saw a spirit beast that could speak like the Lord Gae. They are not spirit beasts. They are a race. The hidden dragon continent is vast and boundless. There are many races. Besides the human race, there are many other races. This Golden Saber Guard is from the spirit wolf race. They have the intelligence of a human, but they have the appearance of a spirit beast. However, compared to a spirit beast, they are much smarter. Luo Danxing, who was leaning against the door, opened his eyes that were covered in blood and said, his entire body was covered in blood. Bufang and the others were instantly stunned. Race, not a spirit beast. In the secret scriptures of the Pill Palace, there are records about this. Although the hidden dragon continent seems to belong to us humans, in fact, it is controlled by ancient races. These races are scattered in the central area. It seems that because of some war in the ancient times, they have mixed together and formed a huge force called the Hidden Dragon Royal Court. Many holy lands in the Hidden Dragon Royal Court are led by the experts of non-human races. As the master of the Pill Palace, Luo Danxing knew many secrets, so he explained. Bufang nodded in understanding. No wonder this golden saber covered himself with armor. It turned out that he didn't want to expose his face. However, once his face was exposed, he was really ugly. Of course, Bufang's eyes looked at Golden Saber strangely. His heart was slightly moved. Race it was. Could this Golden Saber wolf race be eaten? Bufang was more concerned about this point, whether it could be eaten or not. Of course, Bufang didn't know. However, at this moment, without the restraint of the armor, Golden Saber's aura seemed to become even more violent. Xiaobai held the god-slaying saber, his scarlet eyes landing on it, constantly scanning. Golden Saber threatened from a distance. It wasn't easy for him to get one god-slaying saber. After all, this god-slaying saber was ranked very high among the god-slaying weapons. If you hold the god-slaying saber, you will be hunted endlessly. Golden Saber stared at Xiaobai, trying to reason with Xiaobai. However, Xiaobai didn't care about Golden Saber's words at all. After scanning, he lifted his head, looking at Golden Saber. Golden Saber's wolf mouth twitched. He thought that Xiaobai would change his mind and return the god-slaying saber. However, the smile on his face quickly froze. Return it? Why was he so naive? Not only Golden Saber, but everyone else was dumbstruck. Because in their line of sight, Xiaobai directly lifted up the god-slaying saber. Under the sunlight, the god-slaying saber emitted a dazzling radiance. In the next instant, Xiaobai's plump stomach instantly twisted, and a huge black hole appeared. Under Golden Saber's dumbstruck gaze, Xiaobai directly stuffed the god-slaying saber into the black hole. Crack, crack, crack. Like a chewing sound, the god-slaying saber shattered in Xiaobai's black hole. Piece by piece, it shattered, turning into tiny pieces that were swallowed by the black hole. That appearance, it seemed like he had eaten the god-slaying saber. The surrounding people all had a strange look on their faces. Those naked golden armor guards were also dumbfounded. What was going on? The Lord Protector's weapon was actually eaten? That was a god-slaying weapon. Oh my god, what kind of opponent did they meet? They even dared to eat a god-slaying weapon. Golden Saber was dumbstruck. His eyes widened, and his wolf mouth opened wide. He stared blankly at Xiaobai, who was swallowing the god-slaying saber bite by bite. Very quickly, his entire person exploded. Oh, god-slaying saber. My god-slaying saber. What happened to being reasonable? What happened to talking things over? Golden Saber's entire person was about to collapse. That god-slaying saber was temporarily given to him by the higher-ups to deal with the netherworld creatures. Now, he could not deal with the netherworld creatures, and the god-slaying saber was instead eaten by a lump of iron puppet. And it was eaten right in front of him. This was completely intolerable. Chapter 709. Crack, crack. The god-slaying saber was slowly shoved into the black hole in Xiaobai's stomach. It was continuously crushed, and the pieces of the saber flew everywhere. The ear-piercing sound of friction resounded unceasingly. Golden Saber, who was watching from afar, was dumbstruck. Many people were also dumbstruck on the spot. Even a half-dead Luo Danxing couldn't help but widen his eyes. His face was as though he had seen a ghost. That was the god-slaying saber, the god-slaying saber of the hidden Dragon Royal Court's holy land. It was incomparably sturdy and infinitely sharp. It could shatter gold and stone. It was extremely powerful and terrifying. However, this kind of divine weapon was swallowed and bitten by that lump of iron puppet, this fellow. What kind of monster was he? The last time he saw this puppet, it wasn't that powerful. How long had it been? And this lump of iron had become so heaven-defying. Golden Saber's entire body was shivering. The fine hair on his body stood up. He was so angry that he was shivering. The god-slaying saber. His god-slaying saber. Just like that, a lump of iron ate it. How could he report back? The previous few god-slaying weapons had all disappeared. To the heavenly spring holy land, it was already an indescribable loss. This time, the god-slaying saber, which was one of the top-ranked divine weapons, was lost. The heavenly spring holy land would definitely suffer a huge loss. Of course, if they could kill the great void creature of the netherworld and bring back the soul of Tao Dai, they could make up for this loss. Golden Saber's eyes became completely scarlet. He slowly took off the armor that was still stuck to his body, throwing it on the ground. Instantly, the ground was smashed, creating a hole. The weight of this armor seemed to be somewhat beyond imagination. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw it. It turned out that the armor that Golden Saber was wearing was actually such a heavy thing. You forced me to do this. My secret technique hasn't been cultivated yet, but at this moment you, a lump of iron, forced me to use it. I must tear this lump of iron into pieces. I'll break every part of your body piece by piece. Golden Saber roared. After the armor disappeared, the aura on his body underwent a monstrous change. His entire body suddenly swelled up and bulged. The wolf head also became sinister, and there were even patterns on its forehead that spread out. An extremely terrifying aura spread out in all directions, causing the surrounding people to feel suffocated. Golden Saber had become much larger. He slowly extended his sharp claws and fangs to his back. Then, he abruptly stabbed them into his own hair. "Kacha!" A voice rang out. In the next moment, Golden Saber pulled out a bone blade from his back. The sharp bone blade was white and filled with an ice-cold aura. The bone knife was soft and connected together, as if it was the spine of the golden knife. With a swing of the bone saber, it struck the ground, causing the ground to crack and debris to fly everywhere. Golden Blade was now several meters tall and incomparably huge. Although he had the body of a wolf, he stood upright like a human. His muscles were densely packed, and when he moved, it was like thunder. "Kacha!" Facing Golden Saber's threat, Xiao Bai didn't listen to it. He stuffed the entire god-slaying blade into the black hole, as if he was chewing it for a while before swallowing it. Finally, the black hole slowly shrunk, disappearing. "Are you full?" Golden Saber's cold eyes fell on Xiao Bai's body as he opened his mouth. His voice was so loud that it shook the entire place. Xiao Bai patted his round belly. Lifting his round head, he looked at the incomparably huge werewolf Golden Saber, his eyes twinkling. "He shouldn't be full yet. If you have any god-slaying equipment, you can provide one." Leaning against the door, Bufong looked at the enlarged Golden Saber and suddenly opened his mouth. Everyone was taken aback. Golden Saber also squinted his eyes, turning his head to look at Bufong. A terrifying pressure instantly spread out. This Golden Saber had taken off his golden armor, and his aura became even more terrifying. It wasn't any weaker than the white Tao Tai. "Did I allow you to answer?" "Wait until this protector smashes this lump of metal and slaughters all the netherworld creatures. The next one will be you. You're just like an ant." Golden Saber opened his mouth, revealing a mouth full of sharp fangs as he said coldly. Everyone felt their hairs stand on end. This monster had become even more ferocious. Xiao Bai seemed to be a little full from eating, letting out a sound similar to a burp. In the next instant, the metal wings spread out with a clang, and a terrifying wave of air billowed out. Boom! With one step, the crushed rocks on the ground were flipped up. In the next instant, Golden Saber's figure instantly disappeared, appearing in front of Xiao Bai like a bolt of lightning. A punch blasting out. Boom! Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flashed. He instinctively raised both of his arms to block, but he was hit by the punch. He couldn't resist at all, and he was ruthlessly smashed into the ground. The ground caved in, cracking open, and waves of air billowed out. Golden Saber grinned, his sharp fangs emitting a radiance. Both of his legs suddenly stomped on the ground. Instantly, he soared into the sky, jumping high into the sky as if he was blocking the sun. The bone knife in his hand swayed, eventually becoming as sharp as a spear. In the next instant, it became huge, stabbing down from the sky. Boom! The ruins where Xiao Bai was once again collapsed. Terrifying waves of air billowed out, rolling up the broken rocks and smashing them everywhere. The Cloud Mist restaurant seemed to have an invisible barrier flickering, blocking those broken rocks and preventing the wind from blowing over. A head-sized rock came, hitting the barrier, falling down, smashing into the ground. That spot happened to be in the middle of Nangong, Wuk's open thighs, which scared him so much that he broke out in a cold sweat. "Trash! Why don't you stand up and continue fighting? You dare to eat this protector's god-slaying saber? This protector will make you spit it out with interest." Golden Saber roared in the sky. He fiercely swung the bone knife in his hand. Unceasingly, it struck the deep pit in the ruins. Many people were scared out of their wits, not daring to say a word. The ground cracked unceasingly, spreading out. Except for the Cloud Mist restaurant, the surroundings seemed to have turned into a pile of ruins. All of a sudden, Golden Saber's bone knife stopped swinging and his eyes froze. That was because he realized that a terrifying force had grabbed his bone knife. Boom! A figure followed the bone knife, spinning as it soared up into the sky. Xiao Bai's fan-like big hand swung, pounding toward Golden Saber. Golden Saber grinned, also raising his fist. The two collided, causing a tremor. Xiao Bai's figure was once again smashed into the ground. Weak chicken, Golden Saber laughed loudly. At this moment, he seemed to have become a little wild and arrogant, with the wild nature of a wild beast. Perhaps it was because of his appearance after taking off his armor. A wave of white radiance surged. A moment later, from the ruins, an energy cannonball shot out, directly hitting Golden Saber's body. Golden Saber was hit, and his entire body was a little crooked. In the void, he staggered several steps back. The fur on his body was scorched with a burn wound. Although his wound was recovering fast, that kind of helter-skelter made his eyes turn blood red. Xiao Bai crawled out of the ruins. In front of his round belly, a magic array cannon emerged. Holding the cannon, Xiao Bai aimed at Golden Saber, bombarding him with energy cannonballs. That cannonball was really fast. When it crossed the void, it caused the air to rumble. Swish! Bu Fong and the others were watching with great interest. All of a sudden, a gold thread shot out from the restaurant. Bu Fong was bewildered. Wasn't that Xiaopi? Since Xiao Bai was leveling up, Xiaopi had been sleeping for a long time. Now, he had woken up. Turning into a jet of gold light, Xiaopi dashed toward Xiao Bai. Shortly, he appeared in front of Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai's eyes flashed. He waved his hand. He leaped into the air. Buzz! Xiaopi's body moved. A moment later, it expanded, turning into a giant creature. It was a giant gold shrimpy. That golden carapace was incomparably resplendent, and it even reflected the sun's rays. Xiao Bai's body landed on Xiaopi's back. The metal wings on his back spread out, looking so cool. Shrimpy Knight attacked again. Golden Saber steadied his body, coldly glancing at Shrimpy, smiling disdainfully. Two motley crew, just like ants. The Bone Saber swept. Instantly, the sky was filled with saber energy. A saber light slashed down from the sky. Its pressure was huge, and its speed was extremely fast. Swoosh! Xiao Bai's and Xiaopi's bodies seemed to be cut into pieces. However, after a while, they slowly turned into colorful cracks. Far from them, Xiaopi's numerous small feet were moving. He was so fast that he looked like a jet of gold light. Boom! Energy cannons shot out from all directions, smashing into Golden Saber's body one after another. Golden Saber swung his Bone Saber, blocking all the energy cannons. The bigger he was, the angrier he got. That Shrimpy Knight's speed was so fast that he couldn't keep up with it. His eyes moved, and Golden Saber's body landed on the ground. With a boom, the ground trembled. On the ground, he would be able to display his speed more effectively. Boom! The crushed stones on the ground were sent flying. The already bumpy ground had another deep hole. Golden Saber's sturdy body disappeared. A moment later, he appeared in front of Xiao Bai and Xiaopi. Looking at Shrimpy Knight, Golden Saber's sharp claws and fangs punched down. Xiaopi couldn't dodge in time. He was hit directly on the ground. Xiao Bai's eyes twinkled. The metal wings on his back rolled, turning into sharp knives, stabbing Golden Saber's body. Swoosh! Blood splashed everywhere. Boom! Golden Saber's body was pressed to the ground by Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai swung his fan-like fist, pounding on Golden Saber's head. However, Golden Saber was still so ferocious. He opened his wolf mouth. Instantly, an energy beam shot out, hitting Xiao Bai's body, sending Xiao Bai flying. Xiao Bai's body spun in the air. Then he steadied himself. Bright red blood was dripping from the metal wings. Xiaopi crawled up from the rubble, shaking his head as if he was wronged. A moment later, he angrily stared at Golden Saber. Golden Saber crawled up from the ground. The wounds on his body were healing at a speed naked eyes could observe. His flesh was moving. A spirit beast that had just entered the divine soul realm dares to act tough in front of this protector. Are you ready to be roasted? Golden Saber's aura became more oppressive. Above his head, the soul ladder emerged. A star shone on it, shining brilliantly. Golden Saber retrieved his Bone Saber, crouching on the ground as if he had turned into a real gold wolf. He lifted his head, howling like a wolf, responding to the star above his head. Buzz above the star, there seemed to be a towering and huge shadow appearing. A beam of energy fell from the shadow's finger and entered Golden Saber's forehead. Inside the restaurant, after eating and drinking to its heart's content, Blackie, who had just crouched, suddenly opened its eyes. The fat on its face shook as the corners of its mouth rose. As Golden Saber received the support of the mysterious energy, he felt stronger. The 7-step soul ladder above his head began to show a vague 8-step soul ladder. His power had increased tremendously. Roar! Golden Saber stood up, his fists pounding on his chest. He howled ear-piercingly. However, his howl hadn't ended yet. A lazy and gentle male voice drifted out of the restaurant. "Where did this stupid wolf come from? You're in heat outside? Are you disturbing Lord Go's sleep?" Chapter 710. Where did this stupid wolf come from? Did he disturb your sleep, Lord Go? The man's voice drifted out of the restaurant, lingering in the sky, reaching everybody's ears. Everybody was dumbstruck when they heard that voice. Some people took in a breath of cold air, looking at the restaurant as if they were looking at a lunatic. At this moment, Golden Saber, who had turned into a gold wolf, was completely enraged. His intimidating aura was oppressive and surging. As it expanded, it made people's legs soft, making them unable to stand stably. Many people had never seen an existence at this level in their entire lives. An expert at the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder. How terrifying was that? Although the 8th step of the soul ladder was fake, it was enough to show that Golden Saber's power was close to that level. The divine soul realm experts with a 9-step soul ladder were called Almighty, of course. It wasn't normal to have an 8-step soul ladder. That drifting voice contained indifference, the kind of anger one would feel when they were woken up from their sleep. My God, where do you get the guts to talk to an existence at the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder like that? Golden Saber's roar slowly stopped. Of course, he had heard those arrogant words. The wolf fur on his entire body stood up, his eyes filled with rage. "What did you say?" His scarlet eyes fell on Bufong, who was leaning against the door. "What are you looking at?" "I didn't say that." Bufong leaned against the door, his face emotionless as he answered. Golden Saber's pupils shrank. His gaze turned and landed on Nethery, who was beside him. However, Nethery was a woman, so Golden Saber's gaze turned and landed on Nangong Wuk, who was sitting on the ground. Nangong Wuk was bewildered. He hurriedly clamped his legs, speaking nervously. "It wasn't me. I'm a low-key person." Golden Saber's wolf nose fumed. Looking at his cowardly appearance, it was impossible for him to say such arrogant words. As for the weak Luo Danqing, of course, Golden Saber didn't care about him. That weak chicken, he wasn't worth worrying about. Buzz Xiao Bai landed on the ground. Red and purple lights flickered in his eyes. Xiaopi returned to her petite appearance and coiled on Xiao Bai's head. She stared at the Golden Saber with her compound eyes and blue bubbles from her mouth. Xiao Bai stood on the spot as the god-slaying saber fragments in his body started to be digested, and he started to show some slight changes. Golden Saber roared, and an oppressive aura filled the air. He lowered his head and opened his mouth to let out a roar. "Who dares to humiliate this protector? Get out here!" Golden Saber's eyes were scarlet as he let out a deafening roar. His eyes were fixed on the restaurant. He knew that person was inside. Absolutely. Many people seemed to have thought of something, and their expressions changed slightly. Then they looked excited. Many people who knew about the Cloud Mist restaurant revealed expressions as if they were waiting to watch a good show. They stayed in the distance and observed carefully. And that invincible dog, the fat dog in Owner Boo's restaurant. Although it's fat, its fighting power is really explosive. I know that dog. Every time I go there, it's always sleeping. Seems like it's even fatter now. Many people whispered to each other and chattered. They had already guessed who the speaker was. The last time the Lord Go made his move, he had shocked the entire Pill Palace. Many people knew about it. Thus, this time, they couldn't help but look forward to it. However, some people were optimistic, while others were pessimistic, because the power of the golden wolf in front of them was too terrifying. The opponent was an expert from the hidden dragon royal court, an existence that was close to the almighty realm. Could that black dog really deal with him? No one knew. Thus, many people were curious. Luo Danqing's eyes brightened. A ray of hope emerged in his heart. Although Golden Saber's power had become stronger without the god-slaying saber, the Lord Go might be able to fight against him. Perhaps the result would not be what he had imagined. Everyone was a little excited, their eyes looking at the restaurant. A faint sound rang out from within the bronze gate. Then, a black shadow slowly walked out from the door. It walked with enchanting cat-like steps, and the fat on its body jiggled. It was a black dog. Many golden-armored guards wore a dumbstruck face, looking at the existence that dared to call him protector. No one had thought that it was a dog. Moreover, it was a fat dog. Where did this fat dog get the courage to challenge a wolf? Golden Saber's eyes shrank, gazing at the Lord Go. However, he couldn't find the aura on the Lord Go. This fat dog seemed to be somewhat immeasurable. Was it really immeasurable? Or was it just a trick? Golden Saber couldn't figure out. However, today he was a little arrogant. With the support of the stars from the Holy Land, his fighting competence was infinitely close to the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder. Thus, he wasn't afraid. Just a dog. He wasn't afraid of anything. Standing upright, Golden Saber's body emitted a hazy halo. That halo trembled slightly. Just a fat dog. You dare to mock this protector? You don't know what's good for you. Golden Saber grinned, saliva dripping from between his ferocious fangs. Boom! The ground exploded. In the next instant, Golden Saber's figure turned into a stream of light as he rapidly flew towards the Cloud Mist restaurant. His target was the fat dog that was slowly walking out, its entire body trembling with fats. You held a spicy strip in her mouth. Seeing the Lord Go walking out, her eyes brightened. His Excellency was going to take action? That stupid wolf was really stupid. He shouldn't have disturbed his sleep. Once he disturbed his sleep, the consequences would be terrible. At this moment, Xiao Bai seemed to have crashed. He stood at his spot, not moving an inch. Light flashed in his eyes. Bufong's brows arched, the corners of his mouth twitching. No way. Did he get sick from eating again? Last time, he got sick from eating the god-slaying equipment. The last time Xiao Bai got sick, he had to sleep for a long time. Was he going to get sick again after swallowing the god-slaying saber? Rumble. Rumble. Golden Saber's speed was really fast. After his strength had increased, he appeared in front of the Cloud Mist restaurant in just a blink of an eye. He didn't like the restaurant for a long time. He had flattened the surrounding area, but only this place was still intact. How could he allow that? Break for me. Golden Saber roared. His paw waved, instantly changing the color of the wind and clouds. Terrifying waves swept out. A claw slammed down on the restaurant. It wanted to smash the restaurant and kill all the people in the restaurant. Lord Go's dog eyes looked a little helpless. He lifted his head, his fat drooping. Under that pressure, he kept shaking. I told you that you're stupid, but you didn't believe me. Lord Go opened his mouth, his gentle voice ringing again. Golden Saber, who was moving horizontally, was bewildered. What did he mean? A moment later, he saw that fat black dog open its mouth. An ear-piercing dog bark. Boom, boom. Golden Saber's entire body shivered. The plump fur on his body became dull. Golden Saber, who was moving forward, suddenly froze and fell to the ground. The pressure that burst out at that moment made his heart palpitate. What was going on? He was so close to the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder. Why was he like a dog in front of this black dog? Lord Go's mouth slowly shrank. After a bark, he yawned as if he had finally woken up from his slumber. Boom! Golden Saber crawled up. The fur on his entire body stood on its ends. He crawled on all fours as if he had become a real gold wolf. The energy above his head poured down, increasing his strength unceasingly. He could feel the energy expanding unceasingly. The fear and hesitation in Golden Saber's eyes disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by madness. It was as if his bestial nature was drawn out. Boom, boom, boom. His forelimbs crawled on the ground, digging rapidly. Between the scattering rocks, the gold wolf appeared in front of Lord Go. That ferocious mouth opened, wanting to swallow Lord Go in one bite. Lord Go's mouth twitched. He swayed, raising his exquisite dog paw. Then he swung his paw forward. Boom! Golden Saber's mouth, which was about to bite down, twisted. A dog paw appeared in the air. That paw furiously slapped down. Golden Saber's eyeballs almost popped out. Saliva splashed from the wolf's mouth. Of course, one paw wasn't enough. That stupid wolf wanted to eat Lord Go. Lord Go wasn't happy. Thus, he flipped his hand and swung another exquisite dog paw. It was a loud bang. Another claw smashed into Golden Saber's face, causing the other side of Golden Saber's face to swell up. His eyeballs almost popped out, and a few teeth flew out of the wolf's mouth, accompanied by some blood. He had never thought that this little black dog in front of him could be so awesome. Two paws had made him dumbstruck. Moreover, judging from the other's appearance, it seemed he hadn't used all of his power. That kind of nonchalant appearance, a netherworld creature. Golden Saber's figure flipped, landing in the distance. His wolf head was swollen, his voice indistinct. F***CK, this netherworld creature was so strong? How could there be such a powerful netherworld creature in the hidden dragon continent? Didn't they say that those things existed to stop the powerful netherworld creatures? It was already unbelievable that a great void realm appeared. Now, there was a fat dog that was even more terrifying than a great void realm creature. The important thing was, why was it a fat dog? This dog was so awesome. Couldn't it be a little more handsome and divine? Blood dripped from Golden Saber's mouth. He wasn't really stupid. Of course, he knew that the black dog in front of him was terrifying. However, he wasn't willing to give up. The god-slaying saber had been eaten, and now he ran away without accomplishing anything. When he returned, he would definitely be punished by Amethyst Elder. No, he had to risk it. With the support of the Holy Land Star Illumination, he should be able to fight. Roar. With that thought in mind, Golden Saber let out an ear-splitting roar. The star above his head revolved, and an incomparably huge phantom appeared once again. It pointed at the Golden Wolf. Golden Saber's face was filled with excitement as he looked forward to receiving the baptism of the star's power. However, shortly after, he was dumbfounded. That was because a dog's paw covered the entire sky. With a slap, it scattered the phantom. The Holy Land Star above his head was also gently taken away by the dog's paw. Puff! Golden Saber spurted out a mouthful of blood. His swollen eyes widened, filled with disbelief. That was the Holy Land Star. Lord Dog retracted his paw. On top of his exquisite paw, there was a floating star that was emitting a sparkling radiance. The Heavenly Spring Star's crystal source template? It really knows how to play. Lord Go curiously sized it up. Then he muttered something. With a flick of his paw, the star flew up in front of Golden Saber's widened eyes. It fell into the dog's mouth. The dog's mouth slanted as it chewed, and the fat on its face shook. What the hell is this? The taste is terrible, Lord Go muttered discontentedly. Golden Saber sat on the ground. His swollen face still looked as if he had nothing to live for. Bufong leaned against the door, curiously looking at Lord Go. How's the taste? Bufong asked. It's not as good as your sweet and sour ribs. Lord Go chewed as he disdainfully said. All right, then you should be gentle. Don't break it. This wolf meat should taste good, Bufong said expressionlessly. Lord Go's face trembled. Do you want to eat sweet and sour ribs tonight? All right, Lord Go. I will be gentle. Lord Go's dog eyes gazed at Golden Saber in the distance, glowing slightly. What the hell is sweet and sour ribs? What are they talking about? Why can't this protector understand? Golden Saber was bewildered, and his entire body shuddered. Chapter 711. Sweet and sour wolf ribs? What was that? Why did he sound so scared? Why did he feel a little scared? Golden Saber opened his eyes wide. He sat down on the ground. The star above his head was snatched away by a fat dog, eating it like a candy. Without the star, his aura declined rapidly. The 8th step of the soul ladder that had appeared earlier had disappeared. His cultivation base had returned to the previous realm. He was even weaker than before. He couldn't even maintain his soul ladder. The star template was a treasure the Holy Land had given them. It could increase their fighting competence and competence. With the star's reflection, they could get some beams of the Holy Land's destiny. But today, his destiny was snatched, and the star was eaten. Golden Saber felt the entire world was dark. That fat dog in front of him was no different from a pig. How could it be so intimidating? That kind of power was definitely not the great ethereal realm existence of the netherworld. Although the ordinary great ethereal realm experts were strong, the hidden dragon continent was restricted by the principles. Their power would be reduced, and they would be around the divine soul realm with a 7 or 8 step soul ladder. They couldn't crush him that easily. Moreover, how could a great ethereal realm expert snatch the star above his head? It wasn't that he had never met a great ethereal realm netherworld creature. He had even hunted and killed them. However, he had never encountered such a terrifying one. A netherworld creature above the great ethereal realm. Oh my God! If this news was sent to the royal court, the entire royal court would be in an uproar. The Holy Land would be shaken. No matter what, the royal court had always thought that the strongest netherworld creature who could reach the hidden dragon continent was only at the great ethereal realm. And now, it appeared above the great ethereal realm. Gulp, beads of sweat appeared on Golden Saber's head. With a thud, they rolled down his cheeks, dripping on the ground. He had to send this news to the royal court's Holy Land. Golden Saber's eyes shrank. He had never felt so frightened before. He didn't expect that a little chef would discover such a big secret. All of a sudden, Golden Saber's body stiffened. Lord Go and Bu Fong were bewildered. Lord Go didn't move his claws. Their eyes gazed into the distance, falling on Xiao Bai, who was calming down. Xiao Bai's purple and red eyes flashed. Eventually, they calmed down, turning pale. However, the horn on his head became sharper. The symbols on Xiao Bai's fat belly flashed. A moment later, a black hole emerged. Golden Saber felt a chill coming from behind him. He turned his head and saw a whitey with a black hole swirling in its stomach. What did that iron lump want to do? Golden Saber narrowed his eyes. He wasn't afraid of this lump of metal. Although this lump of metal was strong, it was only 8 tails and 2 tails. If Xing Qian was here, he would definitely beat this lump of metal. Now, even if the star was snatched away, he could at least block this lump of metal. What gave him the biggest headache was the fat dog in the distance. The pressure it gave him made it difficult for him to even lift his claws. Boom! A buzzing sound echoed. A moment later, the black hole in Xiao Bai's belly twisted. From inside, a metal stick slowly emerged. The stick wasn't big, and it wasn't long. However, strange patterns were carved on it, which Golden Saber was very familiar with. When he looked at it, his eyes couldn't help but pop out. That's the divine pattern of a god-slaying weapon. Golden Saber was so shocked. His wolf mouth sucked in a breath of cold air. How the hell could a god-slaying weapon appear here? There were stick weapons in the god-slaying equipment, but they looked completely different from the one in the iron lump's hand. In other words, the god-slaying stick in the puppet's hand wasn't the god-slaying stick in the Holy Land. What was that thing in his hand? Xiao Bai's leaf-like palm reached out, and the small stick fell into his hand. His ash-gray eyes twinkled. He threw the short stick up into the sky. The metal wings on Xiao Bai's back spread out, and a clanging sound echoed. A moment later, he soared up into the sky. A long metal stick appeared in his hand. The long stick shook, spinning in Xiao Bai's hand. Sparks flew everywhere. That short stick could grow longer? Xiao Bai hovered in the air. The light in his mechanical eyes scanned, locking on Golden Saber on the ground. The wings on his back shook, and his figure suddenly shot out like an arrow. Golden Saber was bewildered for a while. A moment later, he became ferocious. "You're courting death." Golden Saber, who was still fuming, was enraged to the extreme. He fiercely pulled out the bone knife on his back. With a cracking sound, the bone knife slashed out, rolling up blade energy everywhere. Xiao Bai's body didn't slow down. He was as fast as a cannonball, and the long stick in his hand swung. Swinging both sides, the stick sparks shot up into the sky. The shadows of the stick were so illusory. A stick swept out, smashing down on Golden Saber. The patterns on the stick twinkled. A moment later, it burst out with thousands of beams of light, as if it had become 1,000 pounds heavier. Under that stick, the blade energy scattered. The power of the stick didn't diminish. It fiercely smashed down, clashing with the bone knife. Cracking sounds echoed. On the bone knife, countless cracks appeared, just like a spider web. On Golden Saber's swollen head, his eyes opened wider and wider. Looking at the cracks on the bone knife, his heart couldn't help but shiver. What the heck was that? Boom! With a cracking sound, the bone knife broke. Xiao Bai's hand shook, retrieving the long stick. The metal wings on his back shook, and his figure disappeared, leaving only a shadow. A moment later, he reappeared behind Golden Saber. He swung the rod at Golden Saber's head and smashed it down. Bu Fong and the others were dumbstruck. Xiao Bai's sudden burst was beyond their expectations. No one had thought that after Xiao Bai had been a daze for a long time, he would take out a metal stick that could change its size. One stick had smashed Golden Saber's bone knife into pieces. At this moment, the stick was aimed at Golden Saber's head. Bu Fong was bewildered. The corners of his mouth convulsed. Under that stick, would Golden Saber's head explode? Bu Fong thought it might. No matter what, Golden Saber's body wasn't as tough as the bone knife. But didn't he say not to smash it? Lord Go seemed to know what Bu Fong was thinking. He rolled his dog eyes. It's none of Lord Go's business. It's not Lord Go who smashed it. Boom! The metal rod swept out horizontally, and the patterns on it flickered, making the rod look like an iron rod that had been burned red. Golden Saber didn't have time to dodge. He only felt a wave of danger that made his entire body stiffen. A feeling of death shrouded his body. A moment later, his vision turned black. Far from him, a figure stepped through the air, and the moment he saw the scene, his expression changed drastically. "Spare the wolf under the stick," the shadow bellowed. He took a step forward, dashing forward as if he could shrink the ground to an inch. That man wore a bamboo hat. He had a muscular body, and his white hair and beard fluttered in the wind. It was Chu Changsheng. Killing a protector of the Holy Land was a big crime. When the Heavenly Spring Holy Land took revenge, this little restaurant couldn't bear it. Relying on the Netherworld creatures? It was impossible. The Hidden Dragon Royal Court had many ways to deal with the Netherworld creatures. Relying on that iron puppet, he could deal with one protector, but what about the other 12 protectors? Could the iron puppet deal with them? As the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, he knew how terrifying the Holy Land was. If it weren't so, he wouldn't have traveled thousands of miles to come here just for the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance. He wanted to bring the little girl, Xiaoyu, back. Xiao Bai's ash-gray eyes flashed. He heard Chu Changsheng's voice. However, the stick in his hand didn't show any signs of stopping. With a thud, it swept across, pounding on Golden Saber's head. In just a blink of an eye, his head was smashed open. With a sweep of the stick, Golden Saber's body was sent flying. Xiao Bai held the stick with one hand, thrusting it like a spear. Boom, boom, boom. Countless stick shadows exploded, hitting Golden Saber's body one after another. Golden Saber's broken body kept shaking and flying in the air. Buzz, retrieving the stick, he swept it. A terrifying pressure and strong wind blew, crushing the crushed stones on the ground into powder. The air seemed to stop flowing at this moment. Many people held their breaths at this moment, gawking and dropping their jaws. Many naked golden armor guards on the ground were bewildered. They were so scared that they forgot to cover their private parts. Some people remained silent for a long time before a look of fear appeared on their faces. They looked at the ferocious lump of iron that stood proudly and trembled in despair. Their lips trembled unceasingly. Protector, golden saber. Dead. Dead. A iron puppet smashed his head with a stick? Oh my God. This place is hell. It must be. The surviving golden armor guards of the Holy Land were so frightened, their bodies shivering. They crawled up with their naked bodies, planning to run away. Boom! Chu Changsheng landed. He stood in front of the golden armor guards, his aura extremely heavy. Lifting his head, he revealed the old face under the bamboo hat. When the golden armor guards saw him, their eyes shrank. Chu Changsheng, you. Chu Changsheng indifferently glanced at them. Then he extended his hand. His muscular hand gently patted the guard's head. With a loud bang, the guard's head exploded. His fingers flicked, and a strong wind moved. The remaining guards were all killed by him. He didn't leave anyone alive. Xiao Obai's eyes twinkled. He didn't feel any hostility from Chu Changsheng, so he didn't take action. The stick curled up, turning into a short stick again. He shoved it into the vortex in his abdomen. Buzz, Xiao Bai's ferocious figure slowly disappeared. The sharp horns on his body disappeared, and he resumed his calm appearance. His eyes turned purple once again. Thud! Golden Saber's smashed body fell on the ground, stirring up dust. Xiao Bai slowly walked toward the restaurant. Xiaopi flashed like a gold light, coiling on Xiao Bai's round head. Bufang, kid. Lord Go wanted to be gentle, but this fat guy didn't give Lord Go a chance. Lord Go said regretfully. He wanted to taste the sweet and sour wolf ribs. What a pity. Bufang smacked his lips, looking at Xiao Bai, who had resumed his calm appearance. That metal stick was really strong. It could smash the bone saber with just one stick. The War God Stick is a weapon Xiao Bai created after he swallowed a lot of God Slayer equipment. The more God Slayer equipment he swallowed, the stronger the War God Stick becomes. The system's serious voice echoed in Bufang's head, explaining the stick's origin to Bufang. In the distance, after killing the golden armor guards, who were scared out of their wits, to prevent them from reporting back, he walked toward the restaurant. As he walked, he took off the bamboo hat on his head. His eyes gleamed as he stared at Bufang and Xiaoya. Finally found it. Chapter 712. Valley of Glutton. The sixth elder sat cross-legged in the center of the restored Gluttony Square. He looked a little nervous as he was hosting the challenge. The Gluttony gods building around was packed with people. They were all excited, watching the competition in the square. Although Great Elder Chu Changsheng wasn't here, and some people were skeptical about why the sixth elder was the host, it didn't affect their focus on the competition. Anyway, it was the Valley of Gluttony's grand banquet. What they wanted to focus on was the competition, not who was the host. As the competition progressed, it became more and more exciting. There were dark horses appearing in the first few rounds of the tablet challenge competition. Since Bufang had left, his quota was canceled. However, Jun Qingxiao had become a real dark horse. He had challenged two experts of the tablet of gluttony. The first one was from the top 100, and the second one was from the top 50. It could be said that he was lucky to win the first time. However, the second time, he won the competition, which shocked many people. They recognized his competence. Today, it was his third challenge, and his opponent was from the top 10 of the tablet of gluttony. Lu Tao, the fantasy knife, ranked 8th on the tablet of gluttony. The other was good at knife skills. He was good at sculpting dishes. Moreover, he could decorate the dishes in a dreamy way, which was really mesmerizing. Not only was it mesmerizing, but it also tasted really good. As he could reach the top 10 of the tablet of gluttony, of course, Lu Tao had his competence. Lu Tao appreciated Jun Qingxiao a lot. Thus, he wanted to teach him how to cook with Jun Qingxiao. Of course, in the end, he won. Although Jun Qingxiao's innate talent wasn't bad, it was still a pipe dream to defeat the top 10 of the tablet of gluttony. Jun Qingxiao understood it. Although it was a pity, he wasn't discouraged. However, when he got off the arena, he was a little disappointed. At this moment, he thought of Bufang. That young chef didn't smile much, but his cooking skills could shock people. That young chef was really excellent. Thinking to this point, Jun Qingxiao couldn't help but exhale. Sunset Lake. Many elders sat cross-legged on the lakeside. They all faced the calm sunset lake with ripples in their eyes. The white Taudai was sealed in the sunset lake. Did that mean that the inheritance was also in the sunset lake? These elders were all from the great sage's land. They were brazenly hiding in the valley of gluttony for the inheritance. The Taoye's soul had disappeared, but it was not a big deal. The main thing was that they still had a chance to obtain the inheritance. It should be known that when the valley of gluttony was at its peak, it could be compared to the Holy Lands, or even stronger. The inheritance of such a force was naturally no small matter. At its peak, the Valley of Gluttony had many existences at the Divine Spirit Realm. The Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony was one of the top figures in the Hidden Dragon Continent. Today, the Valley of Gluttony was desolate, and the new Valley Master was missing. Naturally, the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance had become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of many holy lands. Suddenly, just as the elders were sitting cross-legged, the originally calm sky suddenly stirred up a storm. The space trembled unceasingly, and a huge formation emerged in the sky. In the next moment, a figure that was completely formed from light walked out of the formation. Who is it? An elder with a 7-step soul ladder jumped up, glaring at the light figure in the sky. However, that figure just glanced at him indifferently. That gaze was filled with indifference and coldness. It was the gaze of the light figure's original owner. That gaze made the elder shiver, freezing him on the spot. As soon as the light figure appeared in the sky, a terrifying aura diffused from its body. That aura was not weaker than an existence at the Divine Soul Realm with a 5-step soul ladder. The elders all took in a breath of cold air. A light figure had such a cultivation base. How strong was the original owner of this light figure? Then, who was the original owner? Was it an almighty at the Divine Soul Realm? Or an existence at the Divine Spirit Realm? Those elders did not dare to breathe loudly. Although they were not necessarily weaker than this light figure, they were afraid of the original owner of the light figure. If they angered the original owner and the other party really came to kill them, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Whether it was an almighty expert at the peak of the Divine Soul Realm or an existence at the Divine Spirit Realm, they weren't existences that people like them could resist. As the aura of the light shadow spread, the sunset lake suddenly began to boil. Gurgle, gurgle, the lake water flowed backwards. In the next moment, there was an explosion. A terrifying figure rushed out of the sunset lake, accompanied by the clanking sound of chains. Roar! The white Taoye's face was filled with malevolence as it rushed out of the lake with immense resentment. It opened its mouth wide, and a white hole spun as it tried to devour the light shadow. However, as the water splashed, chains wrapped around his body, causing his forward momentum to slow down. In the end, he came to a complete stop. However, it stopped in front of the figure of light. The silhouette seemed to be smiling faintly as it raised its hand and pointed a finger at the white Taoye's head. Tisk, TSK, you bastard. You're still as hot-tempered as ever. The silhouette said indifferently. The white Taoye's scarlet eyes were filled with rage and murderous intent as it roared crazily. The elders were so frightened. However, the silhouette was so calm. Don't worry. I'm here to let you go. If you want the soul of the Black Taodai to complete your evolution, I won't stop you. Go. The silhouette smiled as it caressed the white Taoye's fur. The white Taotai was a little bewildered, and its rage gradually subsided. A moment later, the silhouette raised its hand, and a small formation emerged in its hand. The formation rotated, and the silhouette slammed it on the white Taoye's head. The light was dazzling, and the sunset lake shook violently, raising waves that reached the sky. The white Taotai opened its mouth, unconsciously roaring crazily. As it roared, the chains on its body began to break one by one, turning into giant scraps of iron in the sunset lake, splashing the lake water. Boom! Boom! When the most important chain was broken, the white Taoye's pressure became more and more terrifying. Its suppressed aura was finally restored. The silhouette hovered in the void, and the formation above its head began to absorb the light dots on its body. Go and find the soul of the black Tao Tai. I'm looking forward to your evolution. I hope you won't disappoint me, the silhouette said casually. The white Tao Tai was freed, and the scarlet intent in its eyes intensified. It opened its mouth and roared at the silhouette. The roar brought with it terrifying energy waves, which shattered the silhouette. However, the silhouette's voice lingered in the void. A moment later, the formation in the sky closed, turning into a shooting star and disappearing into the horizon. The white Tao Tai stood proudly in the sky, shaking its body. Its white fur swayed, splashing the lake water. By the sunset lake, the elders were trembling in fear. Looking at the handsome white Tao Tai, their mouths were trembling uncontrollably. The white Tao Tai had broken its seal. The white Tao Tai that had broken its seal was in existence at the peak of the divine soul realm. If it had enough time, perhaps it could enter the divine soul realm. After all, this beast was extremely terrifying. Below, the elders fled in all directions. Those who didn't flee would be fools. The white Tao Tai was too lazy to care about this group of weak chickens. Its scarlet eyes twinkled. It opened its mouth, and the white hole in its mouth began to spin rapidly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Finally, it seemed to have determined a direction. The white Tao Tai's white fur fluttered in the wind as it bit into the void, shattering the void and scuttling into it. Pill Palace. Heavenly Mist City Bufong looked at Chu Changsheng, who was walking toward him, and he arched his brows. Why did this old man come here? Why didn't he stay in his valley of gluttony? Why did he come out? Chu Changsheng first looked at Bufong, then his eyes fell on Xiaoya, who was holding a porcelain bowl and eating egg fried rice. A smile gradually blossomed on his old face. Finally found you. Chu Changsheng smiled and sighed. Bufong arched his brows. Why did this old man have such a perverted smile? And he was still staring at the little girl, harboring evil intentions. Psychopath, Bufong thought to himself. The area around the Cloud Mist restaurant had been through a great battle, and it had turned into ruins. To repair the ruins, it would take a lot of time. However, this did not stop the crowd from loving the restaurant. The restaurant could still be opened. With the Pill Palace's transportation array, the ruins would be repaired automatically, which saved a lot of trouble. Elder Dog was a little bored. He had thought that he would have a chance to use his claws. In the end, Whitey, this lump of meat, had suddenly been enlightened and killed the enemy with one hit. If you wanted to kill it, then so be it. At least leave a complete body. In the end, this lump of meat had beaten the gold wolf to a pulp. The dead gold saber had transformed into his true form, which was a huge black wolf. He should have been handsome, but after being hit by Xiao Bai's stick, he was already unrecognizable. The air seemed to be filled with the smell of blood. Many people still did not dare to come close to the restaurant. They were watching from afar. Luo Danxing did not think that things would end like this. No, his eyes widened. Things were far from over. A protector of the Holy Land was dead. He was a protector. His position in the Holy Land was not low. The fall of such an existence would definitely attract the attention of the Holy Land. At that time, the peak existences of the Holy Land would send people to settle this matter. Could Lord Go and Xiao Bai stop them? The terror of the Royal Court Holy Land was not something Luo Danxing could imagine. Although the battle was over, Luo Danxing started to worry again. That fellow had given him too much pressure. Fortunately, Lord Go and Lord White were here. Chu Changsheng had already arrived in front of the restaurant. Chu Changsheng arrived in front of the restaurant. He looked at Xiaoya kindly, his eyes bright. Xiaoya recognized Chu Changsheng, so she was not too afraid. However, her big eyes were a little curious. Why was this white-bearded grandpa looking at her and smiling foolishly? Bufong raised his hand that was wrapped in black bandages, rubbing the little girl's head. He knew that Chu Changsheng was here to find this little girl, so he let them have a chat. All of a sudden, Bufong furrowed his brows, because he felt that the black bandage on his arm had suddenly become extremely hot. This kind of hot feeling, it seemed that the black Tao Ye's soul was a little restless. Restless? Why would the black Taoye's soul be restless? With a buzzing sound, thick black smoke suddenly emerged from the bandage, forming the black Taoye's appearance. The black Taotai opened its mouth and looked at Bufong, as if it was saying something. Bufong narrowed his eyes at the sight of its restless appearance. Seems like there's a situation. Chapter 713. The sudden appearance of the black Taoye soul made Chu Changsheng retract his eyes from Xiaoye to Bufong. He was familiar with the black Taoye soul. It was supposed to be sealed inside Xiaoye's body. However, as Xiaoye had grown up, the seal had gradually weakened. Finally, during the glutton god's banquet, the black Taoye's soul had broken out. Although he didn't know why the Taoye soul was absorbed and subdued by Bufong, it was still a good thing, wasn't it? When the black Taotai was at its peak, it wasn't weaker than the white Taotai. Compared to the white Taotai, the black Taotai was even more ferocious. It was also the reason why the white Taotai was only sealed and the black Taotai was killed, leaving only a wisp of the Taoye's soul. At this moment, the Taoye's soul was revealed. Moreover, Chu Changsheng's powerful perception could feel the fear from the black Taoye's soul. That fear made him a little suspicious. What could make the Taoye's soul so restless and fearful? What was it? Chu Changsheng didn't know, and neither did Bufong. However, he frowned, looking at the sky far away. It seemed there was a terrifying energy, fluctuation expanding. That energy's aura seemed to be familiar to Bufong. Lord Go had planned to walk his cat-like steps back to the Path Understanding tree to take a nap. However, it seemed to have sensed something. Its eyes, which were almost closed, opened a slit, looking at the sky far away. Yu's jade-like nose twitched, gazing at the sky. Xiaobai stood behind Bufong. His mechanical eyes had turned purple, with light moving inside. On his head was the golden-yellow Xiaopi. A small, exquisite chicken head emerged from under Bufong's feet, its small eyes rolling. 80 was curious, watching everything. However, when Lord Go shot at a glance, 80's chicken head shuddered, retracting instantly. Kacha. Chu Changsheng was bewildered. His brows furrowed. He stood up and turned around. Just like Bufong and the others, he turned to look at the restaurant. The space there began to collapse and distort, and a terrifying wave of air rose up. It was as if a terrifying existence was about to walk out of it. This kind of aura directly traversing the void with his fleshly body. Could it be that an almighty expert from the heavenly spring holy land found out about Golden Saber's death? They're here? Chu Changsheng's pores shrank as he couldn't believe it. That was impossible. It was impossible for the people of the heavenly spring holy land to know that Golden Saber had been destroyed here so quickly. What was that thing? Only almighty powerhouses could traverse the void with their physical bodies. The space that was beginning to shatter was the scene of almighty powerhouses opening up a space exit. When the Valley of Gluttony was at its peak, many almighty experts could do that. Bufong's eyes flickered with a strange light. Even the void was broken. Could it be that they were here to cause trouble again? But why was the soul of the black Taotai so restless? Bufong's face was emotionless as he thought to himself. All of a sudden, a bestial roar came from the broken space. Space shook, and sand and stones flew everywhere. Chu Changsheng was a little bewildered. He took in a breath of cold air. That familiar feeling, that familiar roar, could it be the white Taotai? Boom! The void exploded, and a white shadow emerged from the broken void. Its white fur fluttered in the air, looking incomparably majestic. His scarlet eyes were trembling with terrifying fluctuations, and his power was boundless. Boom! The shattered void quickly fused back together. The white Taoye's body landed on the ground, its razor-sharp claws gleaming with radiance. It opened its big mouth, and the white hole in its mouth moved as if it wanted to swallow people's souls. The white Taoye's body seemed to emit divine light. Everybody was dumbstruck. They had never thought that such a terrifying spirit beast would come out of the void. How could it come out of the void? Many people couldn't recognize the white Taotia's eyes, but it didn't stop them from feeling the intimidating pressure and energy from the big white Taotai. Its murderous aura filled the air. Without a doubt, it was a peerless, savage beast. Chu Changxing's eyes shrank, and his hair stood on end. He thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. The white Taotai? Wasn't this beast sealed in the Sunset Lake? That was the seal set by the Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony. How could this guy get rid of it? Without the seal, the white Taotai was in existence at the almighty level. The appearance of such an existence had brought a crisis that made people feel hopeless. Why did the white Taotai come? Of course, Chu Changxing knew that it came for the soul of the black Taotai. The white Taotai needed to swallow the soul of the black Taotai to evolve. The white Taotai had reached a bottleneck because its bloodline wasn't pure. If it wanted to break through, it had to fuse with a purer bloodline. Only then could it break through the shackles. Roar! The white Taotia's nostrils fumed white smoke. Its eyes were scarlet, and its four limbs pounded on the ground, cracking the already ruined ground. Its eyes moved, passing through the crowd and landing on Bufong, or rather, on the soul of the black Taotai beside Bufong. The soul of the black Taotai was entangled, its eyes filled with fear and anxiety. He knew what the white Taotai wanted, but the current him couldn't stop it. No, if the white Taotai could enter Bufong's spirit sea, everything would be easy to solve. After all, this kid's spirit sea had a bunch of monsters. However, the problem was that the white Taotai still had a real body, so it couldn't enter Bufong's spirit sea easily. The Lord Go cocked its head, looking at the white Taotai, and grinned. "Oh, this thing looks so ugly," said the Lord Go gently. He didn't try to hide his voice, which reached everyone's ears. Chu Changxing was speechless. Bufong's mouth twitched, but he still nodded in agreement. The Taotai didn't look good, but this fat dog was covered in fat. How could it have the guts to talk about others? "This thing's not bad," said the Lord Go. From afar, the white Taotai roared. It had finally found its target, and its fur fluttered. When it saw the soul of the black Taotai, its eyes revealed a greedy look. "Found it. Devour it." Boom! A paw pounded on the ground. The white Taotia's figure dashed towards Bufong. Its speed was fast, and it brought with it a terrifying pressure. That pressure seemed to bring with it a black cloud that pressed down on them. The black Taotai coiled around Bufong's arm, roaring at the white Taotai. A moment later, it scattered, turning into a bandage, wrapping Bufong's arm. Chu Changxing's body tensed up. His white hair and beard fluttered unceasingly in the strong wind. This was the attack of the white Taotai at the almighty realm. He was desperate. Behind Bufong, Xiao Bai's eyes flashed. His body shot out, and the metal wings on his back opened. Instantly, his body changed. While flying in the sky, he turned into the god-slaying Xiao Bai. The sharp spikes on his back protruded, growing out one by one. Shrimpy, who was coiled on the beast's head, was startled by the sharp sound. Xiaopi rolled in the sky, his body enlarging as if he was made of gold. Xiao Bai took out the war god's stick from the black hole in his abdomen. Patterns emerged, and his aura burst out. The war god stick was like a red-hot iron stick. It swept up fiercely, turning into thousands of stick shadows. Then, it ruthlessly swung towards the white Taotai. The white Taotai roared, and the white hole in its mouth moved. Instantly, a distorted wave of energy spread out. Boom! Rumble! Boom! An explosion occurred in the sky. The white Taotia's energy wave and the god-slaying Xiao Bai's stick collided. The strong wind scattered, and the air waves swirled. However, in the middle of the air waves, a giant body dashed out. Its claw slashed down, sending Xiao Bai and Xiaopi away. The two couldn't resist, crashing into the ground, creating another deep ditch on the already ruined ground. With just one move, Xiao Bai was subdued. With just one claw, the god-slaying Xiao Bai was sent flying away. The white Taotia's fighting prowess wasn't ordinary. After all, it was an existence at the almighty level. Even if the white Taotai hadn't fully recovered, it was still in existence at the divine soul realm with a 9-step soul ladder. After sending Shao Bai away with one claw, the white Taotai let out an ear-piercing roar. Its body was like a white lightning bolt dashing over. Its giant mouth opened, and the white hole moved inside. It planned to swallow the entire restaurant. That way, the black Tao Ye's soul wouldn't be able to escape. Nangong Wuk leaned against the restaurant, his legs tightly crossed. His face was filled with excitement. After killing Golden Saber, another powerful spirit beast appeared. It was too exciting. Nangong Wuk was so excited that he wanted to scream. Luo Danqing's face had already turned pale. The white Taotai, the unsealed white Taotai, was an existence that could easily destroy the entire Dan Palace. It really appeared. It seemed like it really wanted to kill them all. It was about to swallow the black Tao Ye's soul. It was about to take that step. The white Taotai was so excited, roaring unceasingly. However, a moment later, its roar disappeared. In front of the restaurant, a fat dog slowly raised its exquisite paw, patting the void. That movement seemed familiar to the white Taotai. Soon, an energy dog paw condensed in the sky. That dog paw, the white Taotai remembered it deeply. Looking at the dog paw, its fur stood on end. It was this dog paw that stopped it from swallowing the black Tao Ye's soul. And now it appeared again. Unforgivable. Boom. However, it was useless. The white Taotai wanted to dodge, but it couldn't. He was slapped on the head by the dog's paw. This familiar scene, this feeling of déjà vu, it reminded the white Taotai of the fear of the dog paw. Chapter 714. Terrifying dark nether energy condensed rapidly. A moment later, in the sky, it congregated into a giant dog's paw shadow. White Taotai opened its mouth wide, and its dashing motion halted. It looked at the dog's paw, its eyes showing a familiar sense of fear. That dog's paw looks familiar. Boom. However, before White Taotai could finish thinking, the dog's paw swept across the sky, pounding on White Tao Ye's head. After a loud boom, White Tao Ye's body was smashed down by the dog's paw, smashing hard on the ground. The entire ground shook and the broken rocks cracked. White Taotai was dumbstruck. A moment later, it was enraged again. Enraged in disbelief. Opening its mouth wide, its body flipped and it crawled up from the ground. Its eyes were filled with ferocity. It's that dog's paw again. Last time, it was the same dog's paw that stopped it from devouring the Tao Ye's soul. This time, the dog's paw won't succeed. Roar. The white hole was spinning rapidly, and a terrifying suction force was generated from it. The Lord Go looked at White Taotai, who was crawling up from the ground and roaring at the sky. He rolled his eyes. A moment later, the exquisite dog's paw swung again, pounding on White Tao Ye's head. However, this time, White Taotai didn't retreat. Instead, it dashed toward the dog's paw without any resistance. White Tao Ye's body flickered. It was hard to catch its movements in the void because its speed was too fast. In fact, the white Taotai even had the urge to swallow the dog's paw in one gulp. The white hole spun rapidly in its mouth. A moment later, White Taotai bit the dog's paw that was waving in the void. He was actually planning to turn the tables and devour the dog's paw. However, while the ideal was plentiful, the reality was rather harsh. Before White Taotai could bite the dog's paw, it was smashed on the other side of its face. With a loud boom, the white Taotai fell onto the ground once again. Chu Changsheng was a little dumbstruck. He stared blankly at the white Taotai, who was once again slapped to the ground. The corner of his mouth twitched as a look of disbelief surfaced on his face. After breaking free from the seal, the white Tao Ye's combat power was extremely formidable. It could be called an almighty being. But at this very moment, that almighty white Taotai was like a dead dog. Time and time again, it was slapped to the ground by the paw that suddenly froze in the void. It was merciless. What the hell? It was that dog paw again. Of course, Chu Changxing knew about this dog paw. If it weren't for this dog paw, perhaps the white Taotai would have finished devouring the black Tao Ye's soul. Boom! Xiao Bai soared up from the ruins. The war god's stick in his hand emitted a scorching light again. However, looking at the white Tao Tai being pressed on the ground, Xiao Bai's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. Retrieving the war god's stick, he scratched his round head suspiciously. The spikes on his body retreated. Bufong indifferently looked at the white Tao Tai, who was slapped to the ground by 2 dog paws. He didn't expect that this fellow would come to him. And didn't that old man Chu Changsheng say that this plaything was restrained by a seal? Previously, when the white Tao Tai showed its ferocity, Bufong was roared at several times by this filthy beast. And now, back in the Cloud Mist restaurant, this fellow still dared to be this fierce. Did it want to court death? Lord Go strode with his enchanting cat-like steps, the fat on his entire body jiggling. The white Tao Tai was slapped to the ground. It struggled to get up, opening its mouth. Countless streams of energy congregated in front of the white Tao Ye's mouth, congregating into a wild and violent energy ball. That energy ball seemed to contain an extremely terrifying amount of energy. Just by congregating, the void was a little twisted. The white Tao Ye's eyes were filled with brutality and greed. Boom! However, before it could spit out that energy ball, the dog paw fell again, pounding on its head. The energy ball in the white Tao Ye's mouth directly turned into energy and dispersed. Buzz, the dog paw disappeared. A moment later, it was replaced by a fat black dog who was striding with enchanting cat-like steps. This black dog strolled, its body flying up. Shortly, it appeared in front of the white Tao Tai. Compared to the white Tao Tai, the Lord Go's body was naturally smaller. However, that fat dog's lazy and steady aura made the white Tao Tai feel somewhat incredulous. Without the sweet and sour ribs, is there another sweet and sour Tao Tai ribs? The Lord Go stuck its tongue out, panting slightly. The white Tao Tai stood up, looking down at the Lord Go, its eyes indifferent. The energy swirling inside the white hole was too frightening. It was the Tao Ye's unique and terrifying aura. Unfortunately, this white Tao Tai was too weak. Chu Changsheng and the others listened to the Lord Go, and their brows twitched. Did this fat dog want to eat the white Tao Tai? Was this fat dog the true form of that dog paw? Hiss! Hiss! Many people took in a breath of cold air. Bufong leaned against the door, looking at the giant Tao Tai. His eyes brightened. He had never tasted Tao Tai meat, so he didn't know how it tasted. Perhaps he could give it a try. Yes, Tao Tai meat should taste good, said Bufong, smacking his lips. Then, the Lord Go's eyes brightened. At this moment, its lazy aura disappeared. The white Tao Tai looked at the fat, ant-like dog in front of it, roaring loudly. It had an urge to swallow the other. The Lord Go slowly raised its paw, slapping again. Thud! The white Tao Tai was pounded on the ground one more time. The ground caved in. You animal, you do have some meat. Not bad, said the Lord Go. Everybody was speechless, looking at the Lord Go's jiggling fat. Where did he get the courage to say that the white Tao Tai had meat? The white Tao Tai could feel the mockery in the Lord Go's words. However, a black dog wanted to stop its path of evolution. The white Tao Tai wasn't willing to accept it. Roar! That mouth opened to the extreme, emitting a sound similar to the evening drum and morning bell, causing the surrounding ground to explode. The white Tao Tai roared at the Lord Go. It didn't feel the Lord Go's aura, which was why it dared to roar. However, the Lord Go's response to the white Tao Tai was simple and brutal. He rolled his eyes, and in the next moment, his mouth suddenly opened wide, as if he had turned into a super large bag. Bark! The dog barked, bringing with it an intimidating aura and pressure. It was like a tornado was stirred up. Countless rocks on the ground shot up into the sky, shattering in the blink of an eye. The white Tao Tai was forced to take several steps back by the Lord Go's bark. Its head was a little muddled, constantly buzzing. This dog is so strong. Seeing the white Tao Tai being suppressed one-sidedly, Chu Changsheng's face became more solemn. The white Tao Tai was unwilling. It had just broken a seal, and its aura was at its peak. What it needed to do was to find the black Tao Ye's soul and devour it to evolve. However, it didn't expect that it wouldn't be able to eat the black Tao-Ye's soul. Instead, it had provoked a demon-like dog. Boom! The exquisite dog paw swung. The white Tao-Ye's head was pounded on the ground again. The ground cracked, and the bricks cracked. The Lord Go indifferently swung his paw. If one paw didn't work, then two paws. If two paws didn't work, then three paws, paw after paw slammed down. Each time, the ground would shake violently, shatter, and crack. The white Tao-Ye's head was pounded deep into the ground. It didn't even have the ability to turn around. The paw slapped more than 10 times. The Lord Go thought it was about time, because he could only smell the white Tao-Ye's faint aura from the ruins. That aura was so weak and desperate. You should at least resist. Why don't you resist? It's not fun at all, the Lord Go said, feeling speechless. Hovering in the air, he reached out his paw, licking. Then he raised his paw again. His paw slammed down. Heaven and earth energy gathered rapidly, turning into a dog paw, smashing down. The ground collapsed. The white Tao-Ye's body couldn't move anymore. Dark red blood slowly gushed out from the ground. The Lord Go's nose twitched. He snorted, turned around, and walked his enchanting cat-like steps back into the restaurant. Bufong kid, it's your turn now. Later, the Lord Go wants to eat hot, delicious sweet and sour Tao-Tai ribs. The Lord Go's lazy, magnetic voice arose. Everybody was silent, watching the white Tao-Ye's giant body fall in front of the restaurant. Its head was pounded deep into the ground, delivering food from 10,000 miles away. Except for this thing, no one else would do that. Nangong Wuk suddenly laughed, breaking the awkward atmosphere. The corners of Chu Chongqing's mouth twitched. Delivering food from 10,000 miles away. How could he think of that? That was the white Tao-Tai, a spirit beast that could rival the almighty realm. How could such a spirit beast deliver food from 10,000 miles away? All of this was a misunderstanding and a coincidence. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. However, the truth was that the invincible white Tao-Tai was smashed to death by a fat dog's paw. Chu Chongqing took a step forward, leaping up into the sky. Looking at the white Tao-Ye's head that was buried deep in the ground, his eyes shrank. The white Tao-Ye's body had black nether energy moving unceasingly. It was a netherworld creature's trick. That dog was a netherworld creature. It was so terrifying. Bufong faintly replied to the Lord Go. Then his aura burst out a little bit. Taking a step forward, he appeared above the white Tao-Ye's corpse. That white Tao-Tai was smashed to death. Green smoke twirled around Bufong's arm. The bandage expanded, turning into a giant black Tao-Ye's soul. As soon as that fellow appeared, it gazed at the white Tao-Ye's body. Roaring, the black Tao-Ye's soul dashed toward the white Tao-Ye's body. Roar! A series of roars resounded. From the white Tao-Ye's body, a Baiguang surged along with the bestial roar. It was the white Tao-Ye's soul. Facing the white Tao-Ye's soul, the black Tao-Tai didn't show any mercy. It opened its mouth and directly bit it. The white Tao-Ye's soul and the white Tao-Ye's soul tangled together, tearing each other. The white Tao-Tai saw the black Tao-Ye's soul as an opportunity to evolve, and the black Tao-Tai also saw the white Tao-Ye's soul as an opportunity to evolve. However, before this, the two Tao-Tais were sealed in different places. They didn't have anything to do with each other. Naturally, they developed peacefully. But today, the two Tao-Tais had their eyes on each other. If they didn't tear each other to death, it would never end. Of course, Bufong didn't care about the battle between the white Tao-Ye's soul and the black Tao-Ye's soul. His eyes brightened, gazing at the white Tao-Ye's body. An ingredient of an almighty existence, Bufong mumbled. A moment later, the muscles on his entire body slightly bulged. Bufong also felt a little impatient. Compared to the gold wolf ingredient, this white Tao-Ye's ingredient made Bufong more satisfied. Buzzed green smoke twirled. A moment later, the gold dragon bone kitchen knife appeared, hoisted on Bufong's shoulder. His bright eyes gazed at the white Tao-Ye's body. Braised? Boiled? Or sweet and sour ribs? Chapter 715. Holding the dragon bone kitchen knife, Bufong squinted at the white Taoyue's corpse on the ground. He suddenly had a little hope. The white Tao Dai was the highest level cooking ingredient he had ever encountered. He wondered how it would taste. The Tao Tai was said to be able to swallow everything. Tao Tai meat should be delicious and nutritious, right? Bufong was silent in his heart. Then, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up, revealing a trace of a smile. The white Taoyue's soul and the black Taoyue's soul were tearing and tearing each other in the void. Although they were both souls, they were equally strong. The white Taoyue's soul had just left its body, so it was at its peak. Although the black Taoyue's soul had been sealed for a long time, it was still very intimidating after being purified. The two seemed to be evenly matched. Of course, it had nothing to do with Bufong. Chu Chongqing looked at Bufong, who was so excited. His eyes shrank. Did this kid want to eat the Taoyue's meat? It was the body of an almighty spirit beast. Did he want to cook it and eat it? However, looking at the way Bufong looked at the Taoyue's meat, Chu Chongqing thought that it was possible. Perhaps that kid did want to eat it. Anyway, Chu Chongqing always felt that this kid wasn't afraid of anything. Why would he be afraid of eating the Taoyue's meat? Moreover, Chu Chongqing was a little bit moved. As he was the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, he had read many books in the Valley of Gluttony's library. Being the holy land of chefs, most of the books were about cooking ingredients and dishes. Chu Chongqing seemed to have read the evaluation of the Taoyue's meat. The previous valley masters of the Valley of Gluttony were actually gluttons. They had a deep understanding of eating. Previously, when the black Tao Tai was killed by the valley master, the Taoyue's soul was sealed and the Taoyue's body was eaten by the valley master. The description of the Taoyue's meat in the books would leave a deep impression on people after reading it once. Of course, Chu Chongqing had read it. Although he had never eaten the Taoyue's meat, he had read the description. Thinking about it now, he couldn't help but drool. That was a real delicacy. Bufong wanted to use his knife on the Taoyue's meat. His heart was suddenly moved. Perhaps he could take this opportunity to have a good meal? Lord Go lazily returned to the restaurant, laid down under the path-understanding tree, yawned, and began to sleep. You leaned against the door. She had guessed that Bufong was going to cook Tao Dai meat. Suddenly, she was a little excited. The strength of this big guy was so strong, and the meat quality was definitely not ordinary. It was just unknown how Bufong was going to cook it. Under the curious gazes of the crowd, Bufong carried the dragon bone kitchen knife and frowned as he looked at the giant corpse in front of him. Bufong's strength had increased tremendously. He grabbed the white Taoyue's body and forcefully pulled its head out from the ground. Whoosh! Broken rocks tumbled down from the cliff. In the void, the white Taoyue's soul, which was fighting with the black Taoyue's soul, seemed to feel that someone had moved its body. Instantly, it roared mournfully. Baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, it stormed towards Bufong. Although it had only a wisp of its soul left, it wouldn't allow anyone to touch its noble body. Anyone who touched it would die. The white Taoyue's soul's rampage had attracted many people's screams. They were so scared that they had to take several steps back. Chu Chongqing's eyes shrank. He was about to take action. However, Bufong was calm. It seemed he wasn't afraid of the Taoyue's soul. Under Chu Chongqing's surprised look, Bufong raised his hand, which was wrapped in a black bandage. The black Taoyue's soul halted as it was about to attack. It looked at the white Taoyue's soul with a mocking smile as it dashed towards Bufong. That fellow had 3 monsters in his body. Did he want to die? Then he should go swish. The bandage on Bufong's arm began to loosen. His arm, which was covered in black patterns, suddenly had a strong suction force. A moment later, the white Taoyue's soul was pulled into Bufong's spirit sea. What happened next was much easier to do. This time, the 3 soul tools didn't show up. However, Bufong had the black tortoise's power to support him. Thus, in his spirit sea, it was easy to crush the white Taoyue's soul. Eventually, the white Taoyue's soul surrendered. It wasn't an equal opponent to Bufong. In Bufong's spirit sea, the white Taoyue's soul could only be tortured. If it didn't surrender, it thought that this kid would destroy its broken soul. Bufong opened his eyes. The vermilion robe on his body fluttered, and an earthy halo flashed in his eyes. A moment later, Bu Fong exhaled. At the same time, his right arm had some changes. His arm, which was covered in black patterns, now had white patterns. The two of them confronted each other, moving unceasingly. Swish! The black bandage wrapped around Bu Fong's arm. However, the black bandage turned white. Eventually, the bandage became black and white. The two noisy fellows finally calmed down. Bu Fong arched his brows. He could feel that the black and white Tao ties in his hand were still biting and confronting each other. The black Tao tie seemed to have the upper hand, suppressing the white Tao tie. It was nibbling away at the other's soul. Perhaps soon, the black Tao tie would swallow the white Tao tie completely. Looking at his black and white bandage, Bu Fong's mouth twitched. He looked a little helpless. He felt that the strength in his arm had increased. His current strength had reached a terrifying realm. At least, it had far surpassed the physical strength of a peak divine physique echelon realm expert. Holding the white Tao Yi's body with one hand, Bu Fong looked at it for a while. Finally, he tossed it. Light flashed. The white Tao Yi's body disappeared. Bu Fong had put it into the system dimensional storage. Above the void, a gust of wind and clouds changed their faces. A moment later, it was as if an invisible eye was watching everything from the sky. The eye saw the fall of the white Tao tie, and the scene of the white Tao tie being put into the system dimensional storage by Bu Fong. A wave of anger emerged in the eye. This useless white Tao tie can't even do such a simple thing. I want you to evolve, but you don't have this life. Useless. A faint, angry voice suddenly spread out. Many sensitive people were alerted. Bu Fong was a little surprised. He seemed to have heard someone say that he was handsome. However, when he turned his head to look around, he didn't see anything. Chu Changsheng took a deep breath. His eyes were like lightning as he looked at the sky. There, he saw a phantom eye that was slowly dispersing. This method seemed somewhat familiar to him. However, he really couldn't remember who did it. After all, he was old. Chu Changsheng didn't care anymore. He sighed, shook his head, and continued to focus on Bu Fong. The white Tao Yi's soul was also taken away by this kid. At this moment, the way Chu Changsheng looked at Bu Fong became more and more strange. That gaze made the pores on Bu Fong's body slightly open. Why was he looking at him like that? Bu Fong's face was emotionless, but he was a little suspicious. Let's go. Today's business is over. Tomorrow, it's business as usual. Bu Fong walked a few steps as if he had remembered something. He turned his head to look at the group of people who were sneaking glances at his direction. The people around were bewildered. A moment later, they all dispersed. They knew that Owner Bu wanted them to leave. Owner Bu was a formidable existence that could kill the divine soul realm experts. The air was still filled with the smell of blood. The owner of that smell was an expert at the divine soul realm with a 7-step soul ladder. That kind of expert was something they didn't even dare to dream about. Today, he was killed in front of them. And that giant beast, although they didn't know what it was, its domineering appearance had frightened them. It wasn't an ordinary creature. Unfortunately, it was still dead. The Lord Go had smashed it to death with his claws. People felt sorry for that giant beast. Of all people, it had to provoke the Lord Go today. It had become an ingredient in Owner Bu's hands. Many people sighed, their eyes filled with regret. It was a pity that they couldn't have the chance to eat the dish cooked by Owner Bu. With that giant beast's power, the spirit energy and charm in its meat were enough to make people crazy. Let's go to the restaurant and talk. Bu Fong glanced at Chu Changsheng, then said indifferently. After he finished speaking, he walked toward the store. With a bang, the bronze door slammed shut. Only the Cloud Mist restaurant was intact, standing in the middle of the ruins. A gust of wind blew past, sweeping up the sand that was swept up by the broken ruins. Only some broken corpses and dark red bloodstains were left on the ground. The formation on the ground began to move slowly and began to repair the ground. In the sky, the blurry eyes emerged one more time. That pair of eyes gazed at the Cloud Mist restaurant with an indescribable depth. Inside the restaurant, Nangong Wuk was exhausted, sitting on a chair. His legs were wide open, and he looked exhausted. Luo Danqing's wounds had stopped. No matter what, he was an expert at the divine soul realm. His powerful body had helped him endure. Nethery, on the other hand, sat quietly to the side, her face cold. Chu Changsheng curiously assessed the restaurant, his face pensive. At this moment, Xiaoyu was chasing 80, running back and forth in the restaurant. She couldn't stop giggling. 80 looked as if it had seen a ghost. It ran and giggled unceasingly. Xiao Bai had returned to the kitchen, standing at the entrance. Its mechanical eyes twinkled unceasingly. Those people were waiting for Bu Fong to cook the Tao Ye's meat. They wanted to enjoy it, and Bu Fong didn't refuse them. The white Tao Dai was so big, so it wasn't too much for them to eat it together. However, Bu Fong didn't say anything. He turned around and entered the kitchen under people's expectant eyes. He was about to cook the Tao Ye's meat. Chapter 716. Bu Fong returned to the kitchen. The people outside were looking forward to it, and he was also looking forward to it. Tao Dai could be said to be the highest grade cooking ingredient he had ever encountered. To cook this kind of ingredient, he had to spend a lot of effort. At least, he couldn't use ordinary cooking methods to cook this dish. Bu Fong rubbed his chin, pacing back and forth in the kitchen. He was thinking about how to deal with the Tao Dai meat. What should he cook? Sweet and sour ribs was a must. Anyway, it wasn't urgent. Bu Fong had long been familiar with cooking sweet and sour ribs, so it wouldn't take him much time to cook it. However, facing such a precious ingredient, if Bu Fong only cooked sweet and sour ribs, it would be a waste of God's gift. Although sweet and sour ribs wasn't bad, it wasn't the best way to cook Tao Dai meat. What should he cook? Bu Fong leaned against the stove and gently tapped his fingers on it, producing a tapping sound. He rubbed his chin, squinting. Tao Dai meat, Tao Dai tail, Tao Dai ribs, Tao Dai hoof, Tao Dai head. Wait a minute. Bu Fong was calculating in his head. All of a sudden, his eyes shot out a dazzling light. The corners of his mouth curled up as he patted the stove. Hoof, Tao Dai hoof. Then I'll grill Tao Dai hoof. A gleam of excitement appeared on Bu Fong's stiff face, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Grilling Tao Dai hoof seemed to be a good choice. Since that was the case, he would cook this dish. As for the Lord Go's sweet and sour ribs, he should cook this dish first. However, grilling Tao Dai hoof wasn't easy. It was a complicated process. His mind flickered, and Bu Fong took out a hoof of Tao Dai from the system dimensional bag. In the system dimensional bag, as long as Bu Fong's mind flickered, the part of the ingredient he wanted would appear. It was really convenient. However, he hadn't processed it yet. White fur grew on the hooves of the Tao Dai. The Tao Ye's hoof was huge, about the size of a wooden block. White Tao Dai fur coiled around it, stained with blood. The Tao Dai had hooves, the heel was the hoof, and the front two were the claws. The claws could be used for attack, while the hooves were used for speed. And this time, Bu Fong took the Tao Ye's hoof. Green smoke billowed, and the pitch-black dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in Bu Fong's hand. The kitchen knife spun in his hand, and after Bu Fong twirled it, it slashed across fiercely. The blade light swirled and flickered unceasingly. Soon, the white fur was shaved off the hoof. After removing all the fur, Bu Fong took a deep breath. In the next instant, his true energy surged into the dragon bone kitchen knife, causing it to suddenly grow bigger. It turned into the golden dragon bone kitchen knife and rested on his shoulder. The kitchen knife slashed down, cutting the Tao Ye's hoof into 8 pieces. After he was done, Bu Fong retracted his true energy, and the golden dragon bone kitchen knife returned to its original pitch-black appearance. Twirling the knife, he picked up each piece of the hoof. Bu Fong used a special technique to massage the hoof, making the meat tender. It was a complicated procedure, but Bu Fong did it methodically and meticulously. After massaging each piece of the Tao Ye's hoof, Bu Fong put them into a big basin. He poured the clear Heavenly Alps Spirit spring water into the trotters and rinsed them. The bloodstains and fur were all washed away, as well as some of the stains that had seeped out from massage. After washing the hoof several times, Bufong poured all the water away. The arm wrapped in black and white bandages swung, and the heavy black turtle constellation wok emerged. Thud! The wok fell on the stove. There was a spot on the stove for the black turtle constellation wok. Bufong put the 8 Taoyu's hoof into the black turtle constellation wok, adding the cold heavenly mountain spirit spring water. However, Bufong didn't open the fire immediately. He swung his hand, taking out an orange-yellow spirit herb from the system dimensional bag. It looked a little like ginger, but it was bigger, and the spirit spring water was thicker. He cut several slices of the spirit herb that looked like ginger, then sprinkled them into the wok. Then, he took out a blue and white porcelain jar, pouring the wine in it. Gurgle! The wine flowed, mixing with the heavenly mountain spirit spring water. Bufong took a step back, opening his mouth. All of a sudden, he spurted a golden red heaven and earth obsidian flame. This flame wasn't the 10,000 bestial flame anymore. Because it had fused with the Valley of Gluttony's heaven and earth obsidian flame, its power and heat had become stronger. Boom! Rumble! As soon as the flame entered the wok, the temperature in the kitchen rose. This heaven and earth obsidian flame was under Bufong's control, so it could be as big or as small as Bufong wanted. It was really convenient. And this time, Bufong directly used the fire to boil it. After around the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the water in the wok began to boil. White foam and yellow foam floated, hovering on the surface of the wok. Bufong didn't stay idle. He wanted to skim off all the foam. The Taoyu's hoof in the wok was boiling, and its meat was slowly changing. Bufong's formidable mental force surged, covering the black turtle constellation wok. He sensed the changes of the ingredients in the wok. In Bufong's mental force, these Taoyu's hoof were like spirit energy bombs, full of spirit energy. Once they exploded, the spirit energy they contained was enough to blast people into smithereens. The energy they contained was really terrifying. It was worthy of being the best ingredient he had ever encountered. Bufong exhaled deeply. His mental force didn't dare to slack off. It was like a taut bowstring. When he sensed it, it was almost time. Only then did Bufong retract his mental force and proceed with the next step. When roasting the Taoyu's hoof, the first step was very important. The first step was to let the flavor permeate the meat. If the flavor didn't permeate the meat, it would be hard to let the flavor permeate the meat. And to permeate the meat, the marinade was needed. Bufong had marinade, but it was used to cook stinky tofu, so it tasted strange. Naturally, he couldn't use it to cook the Taoyu's hoof. Thus, Bufong asked the system for a marinade, which cost him a lot of crystals. Bufong walked to the cabinet, taking out the marinade he had bought from the system. Opening the cabinet, there was a box inside, and inside the box were several pieces of frozen marinade, which were frozen with marinade. It wasn't bad to have a piece of marinade. Bufong took out the pieces of marinade, walking to the black turtle constellation wok. He didn't change the wok, as the foam in the wok had almost been removed. Carefully, he put the frozen marinade into the wok. In just a blink of an eye, the boiling soup had swallowed the piece of marinade, and the color of the soup in the wok began to change. The frozen marinade melted, and the brown-colored soup rolled in the wok. It had the aroma of spirit herbs and spirit ingredients. The two blended together, seeping into the Taoyu's hoof. Foam began to appear in the wok again. Bufong continued to remove the foam, neither hurried nor slow. Of course, this time, when he was dealing with the foam, he also poured all kinds of ingredients with abundant spirit energy into the wok. Then, he added a drop of abyssal chili sauce. It made the Taoyu's hoof taste richer. After simmering for a while, the foam in the wok was removed one more time. When it was boiling, there was no foam left. Bufong took out some ice crystals of rock sugar, adding them into the wok. Then, he added some soy sauce to make the color of the soup more beautiful. After that, he put the wok aside and continued to simmer. Dealing with the Taoyu's hoof before roasting, it was a long process. Of course, although it took a long time, the black turtle constellation wok had a thick, meaty aroma wafting out as it simmered. That meaty aroma seemed to have some magical power, which made people's minds sink into it. The aroma of the meat wafted and slowly spread from the kitchen to the restaurant. The people sitting at the table were bewildered. Their noses twitched as they sniffed the aroma in the air. Lorgo was lying under the path-understanding tree, snoring loudly. However, when he smelled the meaty aroma, he opened his eyes, which were filled with joy. "Smells so good. This meaty aroma, how could it be so thick? It seems to linger in my heart. I can't get rid of it." Young Meiji clenched her big fists, her face intoxicated. Sorceress and Shung's big breasts trembled, and her face blushed. It smelled so good that she didn't dare to breathe. She was afraid that she would breathe the aroma she had just inhaled. Yu's eyes brightened, gazing at the kitchen. Nangong Wuk's listless appearance changed, and his saliva almost flowed out of his mouth. It was really too fragrant, too mesmerizing. Luo Danxing opened his closed eyes. He didn't continue to recover. Just like the others, he sniffed the meaty aroma in the air. Chu Changsheng was more reserved. No matter what, he was the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony. What kind of dishes had he not seen? What kind of aroma had he not smelled? He looked at the people who didn't care about their image. Instantly, his white beard rose. These people had never seen the world. Gulp! Chu Changsheng swallowed his saliva, rubbing his nose. He couldn't help but take a deep breath. The meaty aroma entered his nostrils, making his eyes brighten. It's worthy of being Taotai meat. It's the supreme delicacy that the Valley of Gluttony's ancient books have recorded. Chu Changsheng exclaimed inwardly. Instantly, he looked forward to it. Taotai meat was a high-grade ingredient. Of course, not every chef could cook it. If one didn't have enough competence, he would suffer a big loss if he wanted to cook this dish. Even the first-grade chefs of the Valley of Gluttony weren't sure that they could prepare this ingredient well. He wondered what kind of dish Bufang would cook. Chu Changsheng suddenly had a little bit of hope. He had come here to take Xiaoya to the Valley of Gluttony to receive the inheritance. But now, it seemed like he should taste this Taotai meat first before leaving. If he missed this delicacy in front of him, it would be a crime. In the kitchen, Bufang added some crystal salt to the boiling black turtle constellation wok to make it more delicious. After boiling for a while, he retrieved the heaven and earth obsidian flame. After retrieving the flame, he added a few drops of special oil. It wasn't the oil he usually used to stir-fry. It was Bufang's special oil, which could enhance the freshness of the dish. And now, the first part was completely completed. He scooped out the orange-yellow Taoyie's hoof, drained the soup, and placed them on a big blue-and-white porcelain plate. Bufang took a step back, taking a deep breath. After the Taoyie's hoof had cooled down to a warm temperature, Bufang brushed the syrup he had prepared on each hoof. He wanted to start the last step. Grill Taoyie's hoof. Chapter 717. She whimpered, relying on her intuition to carry the plate with the remaining roasted hoof to the dining table. You didn't want to care about them. A figure had appeared beside his head without him noticing. The last plate, 2 hoof. It was just the right time for the 2 of them. She didn't hesitate, turning around and leaving. Great Elder Chu, why don't you use your power to suppress a dog? Nangong Wuk leaned on his chair, his nostrils flailing. Her little mouth could not help but pout. She was rather happy. Here, take these 2 roasted Taoyie's hoof out, Bufang said faintly, looking at you who was so excited. Bufang took out the metal rack from his system dimensional bag. It was the rack he had used in the magical hand conference to roast hoof. Now, it was a good tool to use to roast hoof. I'm so angry. Why is it so hard to eat hoof? However, at this moment, you ignore Bufang. She was enjoying the roasted Taoyie's hoof, and her mouth was covered in oil. While she was carrying the hoof, she imitated you and took a bite. The mystic flame jumped into the black turtle constellation wok. In just a blink of an eye, the temperature in the kitchen rose. The aroma twirled, and essence energy surged. When people looked at the hoof, they felt like they were watching a handsome Taotai running under the setting sun. Even so, it was still a little difficult. However, The hoof was bigger than her head, which made her a little unsteady when she walked. He scooped out the broth from the black turtle constellation wok, making it dry. Then he took a step back, opened his mouth, and spurted a mouthful of gold-red heaven and earth obsidian flame. His face was indifferent. His white hair and beard fluttered in the wind, giving him the air of an immortal. That smell had the thick aroma of Tao Ye's meat, and it was full of essence, energy, and spirit energy. That energy seemed to condense into a real substance, making the roasted Tao Ye's hoof glow. However, a moment later, he was bewildered. It smelled so good. You nodded and took the blue and white porcelain plate from Bu Fong's hands. He swung the dragon bone kitchen knife, flipped the Tao Ye's hoof, and roasted it in different directions. Her tall and slender body suddenly stood up, and her long black hair fell down. Chu Changsheng was bewildered. It was sparkling and translucent like a pearl hanging on the Tao Ye's hoof. You serve the dishes. As usual, Bu Fong shouted from the window. However, the black turtle constellation wok could change its size according to Bu Fong's will, so it wasn't a problem for it to withstand the 8 hooves. The corners of Chu Changsheng's mouth twitched. Chu Changsheng almost vomited blood. It was the first time he had met such a shameless person. He was so angry that his beard curled up. Yu, who was sitting on her seat and sniffing the aroma of roasted meat in the air, heard Bu Fong shout, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Her upper and lower lips bit the Tao Ye's hoof, and Nethery felt her vision blurred. Placing the grill on the black turtle constellation wok, Bu Fong rose his hand to sense the temperature of the wok. Then, he placed the Tao Ye's hoof, which was coated with syrup, on the grill. Munch! A moment later, she stooped and bit a hoof that wasn't as big as her head. The others also looked at him with gloating eyes. Even the chef wants to eat it? So, there's only one left, right? It's the last plate. Seeing you enjoying it so much, the others couldn't help but want to eat it. He extended his paw, grabbing the roasted hoof. Then, he opened his mouth and bit it. Woof! It's really delicious. After all, it's the meat of an almighty realm spirit beast. I'm looking forward to the sweet and sour Taodai ribs. The fat on Lord Dog's body jiggled, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared in his eyes. Bu Fong placed the plate on the table, looking at Chu Changsheng and Luo Danqing. Then, he took a bite of the roasted pig's hoof, his face intoxicated. While he was intoxicated, the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared, slashing and cutting the roasted Tao Ye's hoof into 2 halves. The sugar juice was somewhat viscous. It brushed over the hoof of Tao Tai, causing the originally orange-yellow color of Tao Ye's hoof to become even brighter. It flickered with a crystal light. Just looking at it would cause one's appetite to soar. In just a blink of an eye, they reached the window. You serve the dishes, Bu Fong called through the window. Little girl, you go, said Xiaoyu with a piece of meat in her mouth. Drops of oil oozed from the Tao Ye's hoof, slowly trickling down. However, they didn't splash on the ground. As soon as the dish was taken out of the window, a thick aroma assaulted Yu's face. A piece of meat was sucked into his mouth by his tongue. That delicious feeling stimulated his taste buds, causing the fur on Lord Dog's body to flutter. However, Chu Changsheng stopped him. Chu Changsheng had learned his lesson. Before Bu Fong could call him, he flicked his sleeves and flew to the window, waiting for the hoof to appear. Compared to the dragon blood rice. Oh, it's a little better. Chu Changsheng, Yang Meiji, Sorceress in Sheng, Nangong Wuk, and Xiaoya, who was standing on the chair, surrounded the only barbecued trotters. They looked at each other with sharp eyes. Nethery's eyes gazed at the Tao Ye's hoof. She stuck out her tongue, licking her red lips. After spoiling it, he turned his head and took a bite of the roasted hoof. Bu Fong used the kitchen knife in his hand to pick up a roasted Tao Ye's hoof and put it on the blue and white porcelain plate. Old man, you're not being fair. What do you mean by help me taste? With Xiaoya's relationship with me, of course, I'll help her taste. You should wait for the other roasted hoof. He helped Xiaoya catch the plate, talking lovingly. The white meat inside the rosy Tao Ye's meat was exposed, steaming hot. Nangon Wuk grinned, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. His face was almost touching the roasted hoof as he spoke in an incomparably natural manner. "Smells so good." Chu Changsheng glanced at Luo Danxing, who was coughing blood and sitting pitifully in the distance. His beard fluttered. Xiaoya was bewildered. She couldn't eat it? Why? Nethery thought to herself. Then she took another bite at the hoof. That beautiful and exquisite roasted hoof was like a work of art. It made their hearts clench. Chu Changsheng had prepared a big blue and white porcelain plate. It was rare for him to encounter something he was interested in. Of course, he wouldn't retreat. As the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, if he retreated when he encountered something delicious, he would lose his face big time. Bufang held the plate with one hand and grabbed a piece of roasted Taoye's hoof with the other. He took a big bite. It was mainly because the metal rack wasn't big enough. However, what he got was a pair of eyes that looked at him like he was an idiot. Once that hoof was on the table, it would be Chu Changsheng's. Since the Lord Go already had food, he could use his power to oppress others. Thus, Bufang had to separate and roast 4 hoof at once. She was really enjoying the food, and her heart was also very happy. "Then, we don't need to worry anymore. Just eat," said Bufang casually. Thus, Bufang packed the 2 hoof and brought them to the window where they usually open for business. Yang Meiji and the others also chuckled. After brushing the 4 Taoye's hoof with syrup, he placed them on the grill. His other hand held the dragon bone kitchen knife. As the temperature of the heaven and earth obsidian flame increased, the Taoye's hoof had some changes. He didn't mind Chu Changsheng, who was bursting with energy, nor did he mind the other surprised looks. "Io, my little girl, come, my handsome brother Wuk will come and help you." When Nangon Wuk saw this scene, he immediately dashed out. The aroma slowly twirled around. Even Bufang was tempted by this aroma. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. In the next round, Yang Meiji and Sheng followed the same pattern and went along with it. Even the largest plate could only fit about 2 hoof. Bufang released his mental energy. One of his hands controlled the flame, while the other flipped the Taoye's hoof. He heated the hoof evenly, which allowed the aroma to seep into it. He sprinkled the spiritual herb powder he had prepared on the Taoye's hoof. The hoof looked even more enticing. It was red with sparkles of translucent light. The aroma and steam twirled around it. Under the lamplight, it looked like a beautiful emerald gem. "Come on, it's the last dish," said Bufang. This roasted hoof was really enticing, and the aroma was so intoxicating. Chu Changsheng was so angry that his beard fluttered. In fact, the Taoye's hoof was edible now. Moreover, it would taste good. However, to Bufang, it wasn't the final product. She held the big roasted Taoye's hoof with both hands and bit off a piece of tender and delicious meat. Everybody's eyes fell on the roasted Taoye's hoof. They couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. Xiaoya was drooling. She extended her small hand, wanted to pick up the roasted hoof. Chu Changsheng was so happy. Being rejected, Chu Changsheng wasn't happy. "You kids, I'm the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony. I'm an existence at the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder. Do you think I'd cheat you of your food?" The Tao Tai was brutal when he was alive. His meat isn't something you can eat casually. Don't say that I'm using my power to oppress you. Today, I want to taste it first. Xiaoya, the Taoye's soul in your body has just been taken away. You shouldn't touch the Taoye's meat this early. Let the great elder taste it for you. The roasted Taoye's hoof with the abyssal chili sauce was so delicious that people couldn't help themselves. Lurgo took a bite. His eyes became blurry, and the fat on his face shivered. He continued to chew on the roasted hoof. It was the first time Bufang had smelled such a delicious aroma. However, right after Chu Changsheng's imposing aura had suppressed them, the Taoye's hoof was as big as a wooden block. Because the Taoye's hoof was as big as a wooden block that required 2 people to encircle, even though it was divided into 8 parts, it was still not small. Bufang walked out of the kitchen with the roasted hoof. He looked at Chu Changsheng, who was squatting by the window with a speechless face. Of course, young magi and sorceress in Shangoked. They wouldn't give in. The meat on the hoof's skin had become crispy because of the syrup. The aroma of the meat diffused with the faint scent of the syrup and spirit herbs. Xiaoye's eyes brightened. She got off the chair and ran to the window to receive the second portion of the hoof from Bu Fong. While they were fighting for the first plate of roasted Taoye's hoof, Bu Fong had just finished the second. This roasted Taoye's hoof was really delicious. Yu's eyes brightened unceasingly. Her mouth was chewing unceasingly. After chewing, she held the big hoof, aimed at a spot, and took another bite. It was really fragrant. Chu Changsheng was so excited to taste the Taoye's meat. He had a lot of expectations for the Taoye's meat. He had made this metal rack to barbecue. But now, it was really difficult to use it to roast 8 Taoye's hoof. Munch, munch, munch. Chapter 718. Bufong's knife slashed down. He controlled his strength well. The sharp dragon bone kitchen knife slashed down, directly cutting the big piece of Taoye's hoof on the blue and white porcelain plate in half. After everything was done, Bufong happily took a bite of the roasted Taoye's meat, letting the oil splatter. Chu Changsheng calmed down, looking at the remaining half of the hoof. His face was emotionless. Yeah, he didn't need to worry anymore. However, compared to the other people's big hoof, Chu Changsheng felt it was unfair. Anyway, he had cultivated for so many years, so his state of mind wasn't bad. Although he felt a little regretful, he still picked up the piece of hoof. The aroma of the hoof was thick. Although it was cut in half, it didn't affect its beauty. As for the taste, Chu Changsheng hadn't tasted it yet, so he didn't want to comment. Taodai meat was precious. In the entire Hidden Dragon continent, there weren't many Taodais, even if they weren't purebred. Purebred Taodais were the real ancient beasts. It was hard to imagine how strong they were. With just a little bit of their bloodline, the black and white Taodais were already so intimidating. When the real Taodai appeared, who could resist it? Even the Valley of Gluttony didn't have any records about the real purebred Taodai. That kind of existence could only exist in legends. Chu Changsheng sighed. Perhaps the only Taotai in the Hidden Dragon continent had become this roasted hoof in front of him. Chu Changsheng didn't know whether he was happy or sad. He took a bite. A piece of crispy Taodai meat was instantly bitten off. The oily juice flowed out from the gap where it was bitten. It was golden in color and sparkled brilliantly. It was too beautiful to behold. There was also a rich fragrance that spread out from it and lingered around. As soon as the meat entered his mouth, the crispy feeling made Chu Changsheng's pores shrink. His eyes showed a gleam of fear. This texture, this taste, this aroma filled his mouth delicious. Chu Changsheng exclaimed inwardly. He couldn't help but start to chew. The meat was chewy, but it didn't make him feel tired. Moreover, the meat's fragrance kept bursting out, mixing with the meat, making people drown in it. Firstly, it was delicious, and secondly, it was fragrant. This kind of fragrance was different from other spirit beast meat. Chu Changsheng, who was used to eating good food, couldn't help but shiver. Being the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, of course, his cooking skills weren't ordinary. He was the special grade chef of the Valley of Gluttony, and his cooking skills were exquisite. However, facing this roasted Taoye's hoof, he was deeply attracted. Chu Changsheng's eyes brightened. He continued to chew and swallow the Taoye's meat. The clothes that were draped over his body suddenly bulged up, as if they were being held up by an invisible aura. Ha ha! Delicious! This is the best dish I've tasted recently. Wah! Chu Changsheng looked like he had gone crazy. His eyes shot out bright light as he opened his mouth and laughed. The oil in his mouth splattered everywhere. Bang! The clothes on Chu Changsheng's body exploded, turning into pieces of rags that fluttered in the wind. He actually ate until his clothes exploded. Chu Changsheng looked at his torn clothes and his bulging muscles, his face bewildered. It had been a long time since his clothes had exploded. Chu Changsheng shook his head, his face filled with emotions. This little chef really did have some skill. Only a special grade chef's dish could make his clothes explode like that. Of course, Bufang's dish wasn't just because of the ingredients. Because of the excellent ingredients, the dish's taste had risen to another level. That was why it could make Chu Chongqing's clothes explode. At this moment, inside the restaurant, no one was talking. They were hugging their Tao Ye's hoof and chewing it continuously. They ate until their mouths were covered with oil. They were so happy. Luo Danqing was also eating slowly. Although he looked disheveled, his movements were much more elegant. No matter what, he was the jade-faced alchemist. His movements were naturally elegant. Elegantly taking a bite of the Tao Ye's hoof, Luo Danqing's tired eyes brightened as soon as the meat entered his mouth. What he cared about first wasn't the taste of the meat. Of course, the Tao Ye's meat was delicious. However, what he cared more about was the thick essence, energy, and spirit energy that the Tao Ye's meat had when it entered his stomach. Almost in a blink of an eye, these two energies started to nourish his wounds. Luo Danqing felt his wounds itch. Then, under the abundant spirit energy, his wounds were recovering at a speed that naked eyes could observe. His internal wounds were slowly recovering, and the true energy in his body had increased. Was this the effect of the Tao Ye's meat? Luo Danqing's eyes brightened. He didn't care about his elegance anymore. He continued to chew and gnaw on the Tao Ye's meat. You ate fast. No matter what, she was the first one to eat. Just like that, she finished the big piece of Tao Ye's hoof. Wiping her oily mouth, Yu pouted, her eyes filled with excitement. The surging essence energy in the Tao Ye's hoof made her feel so comfortable. She couldn't help but indulge in that comfortable feeling. She wanted to eat another piece. Unfortunately, she didn't have any more. Thus, she looked at the others eating, her face aggrieved as she looked at them eagerly. Lord Dog was concentrating on gnawing on the Tao Ye's hoof. The fat on his body was shaking. All of a sudden, he seemed to feel a gaze filled with longing. Squinting his eyes, he saw Nethery looking at his roasted hoof. This little girl wanted to do something bad to his roasted hoof. Lord Go's fat body shook. He bared his teeth at you for a while, as if he was warning her to stay away from his roasted hoof. When Lord Go bared his teeth, he could see the fine Tao Ye's meat between his teeth. It was really funny. You rolled her eyes, her face emotionless. Then, she turned to Bufang. Bufang was bewildered. He indifferently glanced at you. Both of them were expressionless. Meanwhile, Bufang's emotionless face had inadvertently increased his speed of gnawing the Tao Ye's hoof. Nethery's nostrils flared as she turned her head in disdain, her gaze landing on Xiaoya. At this moment, Xiaoya was happily holding the bone she had just gnawed clean, dancing with joy. All right, this little girl didn't look big, but her appetite was really big. You indifferently glanced at her. Then, her eyes shifted to Nangong Wuk, who wasn't far from her. Nangong Wuk seemed to sense Yu's gaze. His pupils shrank. Without saying anything, he opened his mouth, stuck out his tongue, and licked the roasted hoof. Then, he proudly revealed his white teeth. Yu's mouth convulsed. She hated that she couldn't slap that fool to death. Since there was no more food, Yu angrily crawled back to her netherworld ship to sleep. The others continued to gnaw on the Tao Ye's hoof. The restaurant was filled with a thick aroma after a long time. Everybody had eaten their fill. After eating a big piece of Tao Ye's hoof, they felt a little bloated. Everyone leaned back in their chairs, rubbing their stomachs as they exhaled happily. Being able to eat such delicacies was an indescribable happiness. Yang Meiji and Ensheng leaned on their chairs. Ensheng's big breasts slightly shook, which attracted people's eyes. The two of them were Bufang's apprentices. After tasting such a delicious dish, their hearts were filled with excitement. Would they be able to cook such a delicacy in the future? Just thinking about it made them look forward to it. If they could eat such delicacies every day, what kind of happiness would it be? Bufang curled up on his chair. He also felt satisfied. This kind of delicacy was really rare. Indeed, the dishes cooked with good ingredients were even more delicious. Seems like I have to find more delicious ingredients in the future. Bufang thought to himself. All of a sudden, the air in the restaurant fluctuated, and Chu Chongsheng was bewildered. Chu Changsheng was bewildered. A moment later, he straightened his body. His face was so stern as he opened his mouth to breathe. Buzz after a buzzing sound, a small vortex emerged above his head. It spun rapidly, becoming bigger and bigger. At this moment, if someone were outside the restaurant, they would see a massive vortex of spirit energy that was dozens of miles wide in the sky above the cloud mist restaurant. Torrential spirit energy unceasingly congregated into the restaurant. Chu Changxing's body seemed to radiate a dazzling radiance. Energy diffused. Many people were bewildered. Was he going to break through? In the next moment, almost everyone's expression changed. Nangong Wuk felt as though the energy in his body was about to overflow. He sat cross-legged, his clothes fluttering even though there was no wind. His aura fluctuated unceasingly. Yang Meiji and Sheng were also doing the same. They were preparing to break through. Luo Danqing had entered his cultivating state. His wounds were healing at a speed that naked eyes could observe. Not only that, but his cultivation base had also increased a little. As for the little girl, Xiaoya, there was nothing strange happening. This little girl has a key in her body that has collected all the spirit energy she had absorbed. That's why she didn't break through. Lord Go lazily watched the scene, speaking faintly. Those people's breakthrough wasn't beyond his estimation. The Taotai meat was a spirit beast at the Almighty Realm, after all. The spirit energy and essence energy it contained were enough to help them break through. Moreover, since they had been cooked, they wouldn't explode because of the abundant spirit energy. The spirit energy would hide in their bodies, and as they cultivated, it would subtly affect their cultivation base. Therefore, in a short period of time, these little fellows would be able to improve crazily when cultivating. Of course, the old man was different. The spirit energy and essence energy from the Taotai meat were enough to support him to break through this time. However, this breakthrough wasn't ordinary. It was a leap of quality. After all, this old man's cultivation base had reached the peak of the divine soul realm with a 7-step soul ladder. He was close to the 8-step soul ladder. Today, under the stimulation of the Taotai meat, he had a complete breakthrough. The spirit energy vortex above his head moved. Steps of the soul ladder began to emerge. It looked like he was about to reach the sky. Chapter 719. The entire heavenly mist city seemed to be boiling at this moment. A funnel-shaped spirit energy vortex appeared in the sky above the heavenly mist city, covering the entire city. The massive spirit energy moved and hovered. At this moment, the entire heavenly mist city seemed to darken, and the wind and clouds changed colors. Many people didn't know what was going on. They had just experienced a terrifying battle, and now, such a terrifying phenomenon appeared. Many residents of Heavenly Mist City thought it was the end of the world. However, some knowledgeable people didn't think so. It was an expert breaking through. Some people exclaimed inwardly. Some were so excited, and some even opened their arms, bathing in the spirit energy that seemed to have condensed in a liquid form. They crazily absorbed the spiritual qi, feeling the comfortable feeling when the spiritual qi poured into their bodies and washed over their bodies. When a peerless expert broke through, they would also benefit from it. When a man achieved the Tao, even his chickens and dogs could ascend to heaven. The glory obtained would benefit many people, and the spiritual energy vortex caused by the breakthrough of a top-notch expert would increase the density of the spiritual energy by several times. Cultivating in such a dense environment would yield half the result with twice the effort. Inside the restaurant, Chu Changxing's entire body bloomed with dazzling light. A white soul ladder emerged above his head. The 7-step soul ladder was really magical. Lines moved on it, and each step was flat and smooth. The higher one climbed, the more magical it became. It bloomed with dazzling light, which was as dazzling as white jade. The jade moved, and energy boiled. Chu Changxing's entire body became solemn. He opened his mouth, and energy gushed out. His body glowed as he was receiving the baptism of the heaven and earth spirit energy. His bones seemed to radiate light, which was really magical. With Chu Changsheng as the center, Nangong Wuk and the others sat cross-legged around him, closing their eyes to break through. Their bodies were also densely covered in spirit qi, and shackles were swaying in the void. After eating a piece of Tao Ye's hoof, many people had broken through at the same time. Xiaoye looked at them suspiciously. She was pulled by Bu Fong, and Bu Fong's bandaged hand touched the little girl's head. Bu Fong, brat, you still owe your Lord Go a meal of sweet and sour Tao Ye's meat ribs. Don't think of reneging on your debt. Lord Go will go take a nap first. Come and wake your Lord Go when you are done. Lord Go opened his mouth wide and yawned before walking toward the path understanding tree. To him, the energy in the Tao Ye's meat was better than nothing. It could help Chu Changsheng and Nangong Wuk break through, but if he wanted the Lord Go to break through, this was simply impossible. The corner of Bu Fong's mouth twitched. This lazy dog was too much. He had just eaten the roasted Tao Ye's hoof, but he was still thinking about the sweet and sour Tao Dai ribs. He only knew how to eat all day. He was so fat, but he was still thinking about eating. Bu Fong shook his head, sighing emotionally. Where was the handsome, divine Lord Go? These little fellows are breaking through. They're really noisy. Lord Dog's gentle and magnetic voice rang out. Then it laid down under the path understanding tree and fell into a deep slumber in no time. Since Bu Fong's breakthrough was different from theirs, he was okay after eating the roasted Tao Ye's hoof. Xiaoye didn't know why, but she wasn't affected. The others were breaking through. Even Luo Danxing, who was hurt badly, seemed to be recovering fast. Moreover, his mental state was improving unceasingly, and his aura was increasing. Rumble, rumble. In the void, countless wisps of spirit energy congregated, and the formidable mental energy floated. Chu Changsheng frowned, sitting cross-legged. Both of his hands were making strange hand seals. His mind was shaken. Bu Fong's eyes were bright. It was the first time he saw a divine soul realm expert breakthrough. Because of the system, Bu Fong's breakthrough was always done quietly. This was the first time he saw such a grand breakthrough, so he was a little curious. Buzz, after a buzzing sound, Chu Changsheng's entire body shivered. A moment later, mental energy gathered above his head, turning into a little man. It was Chu Changsheng. His white beard and hair fluttered in the wind. Chu Changsheng's eyes were solemn and serious. When one reached the divine soul realm, every breakthrough was a test. The divine soul realm had 9 steps of the soul ladder. After each step, the mental energy would be stronger, and the God soul would also be stronger. Being able to condense 8 steps of the soul ladder meant that one's competence was considered first class in the hidden dragon continent. Even some experts at the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder could be called almighty. They could break the void and travel through it. That kind of existence was truly intimidating. Because of their powerful God soul, they weren't afraid of the void's erosion. Their bodies were also nourished by the God soul, which made them more intimidating than the divine physique realm. If the divine physique realm was the foundation, then the divine soul realm was the foundation to build a skyscraper. The 9-step soul ladder was the skyscraper. Once the skyscraper was completed, one could overlook the common people. The real existence at the divine soul realm with a 9-step soul ladder was the real almighty. Even the holy lands were existences that could subdue an entire region. In the other forces of the hidden dragon continent, they were the pillars, and above the divine soul realm was the divine spirit realm. To reach the divine spirit realm, one must first step on the 9-step soul ladder and ignite the divine flame in the God soul. Only then could one become a real existence at the divine spirit realm. Once one entered the divine spirit realm, he would be in existence at the level of a sect master. In the entire hidden dragon continent, he would be the real peak existence. The previous white Tao Tai was a spirit beast at the almighty level. Of course, to a large extent, this almighty level wasn't true. Since the white Tautai had just broken the seal, many of its abilities hadn't recovered yet. Perhaps its fighting capacity was equal to an existence at the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder. And because of that, the Lord Go had smashed it to death with his paw. No doubt, the fat black dog in the Cloud Mist restaurant was a real spirit beast at the almighty level. There was no doubt about it. It was an existence at the peak of the great ethereal realm among the netherworld creatures. Chu Changsheng, who had transformed into a little man, wore a solemn face. Facing an earth-shaking pressure, he strode forward, stepping on the jade-white soul ladder. The pressure expanded. Boom! He stepped on the first step of the soul ladder. Without slowing down, he continued to step on the second step of the soul ladder. Then, the third step, the fourth step. The further he went, the longer it took him to prepare. Because the higher the soul ladder was, the greater the pressure on his mental energy was, and the greater the effect on his god soul. He was under a lot of pressure, so he walked even slower. Finally, under such a difficult situation, he stepped on the 7th step of the soul ladder. In front of the 7th step was a torrential spirit energy storm. That spirit energy storm was like a terrifying beast opening its mouth as if it wanted to swallow everything. Chu Changsheng didn't stop, continuing to stride forward. One of his feet stepped on the void. Energy moved. Countless wisps of spirit energy and energy gathered under his feet, turning into real entities. His mental energy surged torrentially. Chu Changsheng felt that the energy in his body was boiling unceasingly. His body bloomed with dazzling light. Rumble, rumble. The spirit energy storm above Heavenly Mist City continued to sweep. Lightning flashed, and the storm roared. Under Chu Changsheng's feet, the white light condensed, turning into the new 8th step of the soul ladder. It was as white as a beautiful jade, incomparably dazzling. He had finally broken through to the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder. On the 8th step, it was a pitch-black chaos. Chu Changsheng, who had transformed into a little man, watched for a long time before turning into light and dispersing. The 9th step of the soul ladder wasn't something he could create at this moment. His cultivation base wasn't high enough, and his innate talent couldn't reach that level. He wasn't like many spirit beasts. As long as they could survive and absorb the essence of heaven and earth for a long time, they would eventually break through, or they could rely on the bloodline of the antiquity-time spirit beasts to enter a higher realm. Humans couldn't do it. They needed to struggle and work hard. They had to rely on their innate talents and amazing perseverance and opportunities. Chu Changsheng was considered an outstanding expert. However, reaching this level, he felt a little bewildered and dispirited. If he hadn't had a chance to eat the roasted Taoye's hoof, he didn't know how long it would take him to create the 8th step of the soul ladder. The 8 steps of the soul ladder had fused into one. The light it emitted was warm and comfortable. It shrouded people, giving them a comfortable feeling. The 8 steps of the soul ladder bloomed. From the 8th step of the soul ladder, a powerful soul energy shot down, shining on Chu Changsheng's glabella. Then it slowly disappeared. Chu Changsheng's eyelids twitched. Slowly, he opened his eyes. Light seemed to move in his eyes. His spirit, chi, and soul had become completely different. Opening his mouth, Chu Changsheng exhaled a mouthful of murky air. He looked much younger now. Although he still had white hair and eyebrows, his eyes were sparkling. He was much more energetic than many young people. Chu Changsheng was really strong. At the Divine Soul Realm, with a 7-step soul ladder, he could fight against an expert with an 8-step soul ladder. Now, at the Divine Soul Realm, with an 8-step soul ladder, he could compete with an almighty expert. Some monstrous talents could be called almighty at the Divine Soul Realm with an 8-step soul ladder because they could travel through the void. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone started to retract their auras. Nangong Wuk opened his eyes, which were filled with excitement. His power had broken through, and it wasn't a small breakthrough. He had broken 4 of the Supreme Being's shackles. He just needed one more to reach the peak of divine physique echelon. His rate of improvement made him feel a little crazy. Today, he could be said to be the head of the heavenly mist city's #1 family. With his power, he could bring the Nangong family up easily. What a pity Wonder isn't here. It's a pity to miss this chance. Nangong Wuk was a little upset. He should have brought Nangong Wan here today. Even if he used his toes to think, he knew that Bufong wouldn't sell the Tout Ye's meat. Thus, it was impossible for Nangong Wan to eat such delicious food that could help her break through again. Of course, he could shamelessly beg Bufong. However, he thought that with Bufong's character, only God knew if he would agree or not. Otherwise, why would he let Wonder stick to Bufong? Nangong Wuk once again had the idea of becoming Bufong's brother-in-law. However, after thinking for a while, he glanced at the netherworld ship anchored under the Path Understanding tree and gave up. Luo Danqing had also broken through. Not only had his wounds healed, but his cultivation base had also broken through to the Divine Soul realm with a 4-step soul ladder. Yang Meiji and Sorceress and Sheng had also broken through. Their progress wasn't much different from Nangong Wuk's. When they opened their eyes, they were so happy. Essence energy gushed out his mouth. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Bufong. He had to thank Bufong for this unexpected breakthrough. There was no doubt about it. However, since they had eaten, it was time to do some business. Chu Changsheng stood up, his eyes falling on the little girl, Xiao Ye by Bufong. Xiao Ye had eaten a whole piece of Tout Ye's hoof, but she didn't show any sign of breaking through after half a year. This made the corners of Chu Changsheng's mouth twitch. Indeed, the Valley Master had placed that thing in the little girl's body. No wonder why the little girl could seal the black Tout Ye's soul with her body. Only the little girl, who had received that thing's nourishment, could resist the furious Tout Ye's soul and survive until now. Otherwise, this little girl would have been torn apart by the Tout Ye's soul. Not everybody was as monstrous as Bufong, who could easily subdue the Tout Ye's soul. The gap between a human's body and a spirit beast was too big. Thank you for your hospitality, Owner Bu. However, I'm here this time to bring Xiaoye back to the Valley of Gluttony. Our Valley of Gluttony needs her, said Chu Changsheng, his eyes bright. Chapter 720. Chu Changsheng leisurely took out a coat from his spatial ring, putting it on. He indifferently lifted his head, his white hair and beard fluttering in the wind. His eyes fell on Bufong as he spoke. His voice was calm, but was unquestionable. As he had broken through to the almighty realm, Chu Changsheng's aura had become much more dignified. Just looking at him gave people a heavy pressure. This time, I'm here to bring Xiaoye back to the Valley of Gluttony. Our Valley of Gluttony needs her, said Chu Changsheng. He was really grateful to Bufong for giving him a chance to break through. However, even if he had broken through, he still wanted to bring Xiaoye back. Because this time, he was sure that the key to open the inheritance was with Xiaoye. As long as he brought Xiaoye back to the Valley of Gluttony, the inheritance would open, and Xiaoye would have a chance to inherit the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance. On this point, Chu Changsheng wouldn't give in even the slightest bit. Bufong was a little skeptical, frowning as he listened to Chu Changsheng. His bandaged hand gently pressed on Xiaoye's head. The latter was also skeptical as she looked at Chu Changsheng. I'm not leaving. I want to stay here with Big Brother. Hearing that Chu Changsheng wanted to take her away, Xiaoye panicked. She turned around and hugged Bufong's thigh, shouting anxiously. Chu Changsheng was dumbstruck. Bufong's face was emotionless. This little girl was really calm when she hugged his thigh. Nangong Wuk couldn't stand it anymore. He said to Chu Changsheng, Senior, if Xiaoye likes to stay here, let her stay. She's just a kid. We shouldn't make things difficult for her. Shut up. Chu Changsheng indifferently turned his head to look at Nangong Wuk, speaking calmly. They didn't understand how important Xiaoye was to the Valley of Gluttony. Although the Valley of Gluttony seemed to be bustling, and the Gluttony Tablet was extremely prosperous, Chu Changsheng was the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony. However, as the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, Chu Changsheng had always been able to see things clearly. That was because behind the Valley of Gluttony, there was a terrifying beast eyeing them like a tiger watching its prey. It could swallow the Valley of Gluttony at any time. That beast was none other than the Hidden Dragon Royal Court's Holy Land. Not only the Heavenly Spring Holy Land, but the other Holy Lands also wanted to share the Valley of Gluttony. What they wanted was the Valley of Gluttony's treasures and the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance. It should be known that when the Valley of Gluttony was at its peak, it was stronger than the ordinary Holy Lands. Although it had declined, its inheritance was still very attractive. Chu Changsheng could not let the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance fall into the hands of those bastards from the royal court. So the little lass had to go with him. "You old geezer, this little girl has good food and drinks here. Why would she follow you to the Valley of Gluttony?" Nangongwuk felt as though he had been slapped in the face. He curled his lips and said. Chu Changsheng squinted. His eyes raked through the area, and the terrifying pressure of an almighty instantly diffused. Nangongwuk felt as if a heavy mountain was pressing down on his body, and he was unable to breathe. Do you mean that the little girl won't have good food and drinks in the Valley of Gluttony? To tell you the truth, although this little chef's cooking skills aren't bad, in the Valley of Gluttony, he's just so. He can't even enter the top 5. If the Valley of Gluttony was at its peak, this little chef, entering the top 50 of the Tablet of Gluttony, was just a pipe dream. Chu Changsheng said seriously. His voice was filled with pride for the Valley of Gluttony. It was true that Bufang's grilled Taoye's hoof had helped him break through and enter the almighty realm. However, it didn't mean that Bufang's cooking skills had reached the peak of the Valley of Gluttony. Bufang's cooking skills were just at the first-grade chef level. With Chu Changsheng's sharp eyes, of course, he could see that. And in the Valley of Gluttony, there were some special grade chefs who were even better than Bufang. This time, he could cook the delicious grilled Taoye's hoof because of the top-grade ingredients. If he hadn't used the Taoye's hoof, this dish wouldn't have been able to tear his clothes. Nangongwuk arched his brows. He gaped, looking at Chu Changsheng with an astonished face. He had never thought that this old man in front of him, who looked so simple and honest, he was so shameless. He dared to say that Old Boo's cooking skills weren't worth mentioning. Old Boo's cooking skills were the best chef Nangongwuk had ever seen. This old man had eaten Old Boo's food, and his power had increased tremendously. However, he was still so pretentious. Really shameless. "I don't want to talk to you," Nangongwuk snorted, turning his head away. Chu Changsheng rolled his eyes and looked at the little girl. He said indifferently, "Perhaps you don't know what your identity means. With your identity, your freedom doesn't belong to you anymore. If you didn't have the Black Taoye's soul sealed in your body, you would have been brought to the Gluttony God City. You were born to belong to the Gluttony God City," said Chu Changsheng. Xiaoya's big eyes looked at Chu Changsheng. Then, she snorted and turned her head away, hugging Bufang's thigh. She didn't want to talk to Chu Changsheng. Cough, cough. Chu Changsheng felt a little embarrassed. He had said it so bluntly, but this little girl still didn't give him face. Was it that hard to go back to the Valley of Gluttony with him? You like to eat, don't you? There are so many chefs in the Valley of Gluttony. If they cook for you every day, they will definitely cook better food than this little chef, Chu Changsheng sighed. Eventually, he turned to Bufang. He thought that only Bufang could make the final decision. As soon as he lifted his head, he found that Bufang was in a daze. Bufang was indeed in a daze. That was because the serious voice of the system arose in his head. The great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, Chu Changsheng, has questioned the host's cooking skills. Moreover, he looks down on you. As the host who wants to stand on the top of the food chain in this fantasy world, you must let him know that he has to pay a price for looking down on the future god of cooking. Temporary mission. Go to the Valley of Gluttony and challenge the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. When they're kitchen knives, the future god of cooking can't be humiliated. Mission reward. 4 symbols fire control skill. The system's notification made Bufang a little dumbstruck. He had just come back from the Valley of Gluttony. Why did he have to go there again? Moreover, it was even more ferocious this time. He wanted to challenge the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. Isn't it a little too exciting? The top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony were chefs at Wenrenshang's level. Moreover, he wanted to have a chef's challenge. To win, he had to take his opponent's kitchen knife. It was a little cruel. Bufang furrowed his brows. He felt that it wasn't right. Do you have to be so cruel? System. It was a chef's challenge. The loser would be deprived of his right to cook. Moreover, his kitchen knife would be taken away. To a chef, it was a devastating blow. Host, don't worry. The system has changed the rules of a chef's challenge. Even if you lose, your opponent won't be deprived of his right to cook. Moreover, they will have the chance to challenge you again to take back their kitchen knives, said the system seriously. Listening to it, Bufang exhaled in relief. So it was like that. It was good then. However, the system's next words made Bufang's face stiffen. If the host fails in the chef's challenge, he will be deprived of his right to cook. Moreover, his god of cooking set and his cooking talent will be taken away. He will never be a chef again. The system's words were cold and indifferent. Bufang felt as if he had fallen into an icy sea. He almost suffocated, and he found it hard to breathe. If he failed in the chef's challenge, he would be deprived of his cooking talent and the god of cooking set. He would never be a chef again. Was that the price and punishment for failing? Bufang's eyes shrank. A moment later, he gasped for breath. His entire body was soaked in sweat. The system's purpose was to train him to be the god of cooking who stood at the top of the food chain in the fantasy world. As a god of cooking, he was not allowed to fail in the chef's challenge. If it was before, the system wouldn't have asked Bufang to do that. However, after coming back from the Valley of Gluttony, Bufang's cooking talent was qualified, capable, and had the chance to defeat all the chefs in the Valley of Gluttony. That was why the system had given him such harsh requirements and punishment. Its purpose was to make Bufang cut off all means of retreat. As a god of cooking, he must have the determination to cut off all means of retreat. Bufang had heard from the tool spirits of the god of cooking set that the system had a host before. However, those hosts had all fallen at the last step. It meant that the path to becoming a god of cooking wasn't that simple and easy. At the thought of this, Bufang suddenly felt his body tremble. It was a feeling of restlessness and excitement, as if his cells were boiling under his skin. If that's the case, then I'll flatten everything. Nothing can stop me. Bufang let out a long breath and said with an expressionless face. However, there was an astonishing sharpness in his eyes. He liked the comfort of the restaurant, but he wouldn't let himself die prematurely on the path to becoming a god of cooking. Chu Changsheng, who was standing in front of Bufang, was a little bit absent-minded. He could feel that Bufang had changed greatly, and this change made his heart jump. What happened? Why did this little chef's aura change so much in just a blink of an eye? That sharp feeling, that indomitable feeling, as if he wanted to break everything, made his heart beat faster. From Bufang, he could feel the aura of the former valley master of the Valley of Gluttony. How could it be? Bufang's eyes moved, his face emotionless as he looked at Chu Changsheng. He patted Xiao Ye's head with his bandaged hand, making the latter lift her head to look at him. Do you want to take Xiao Ye back to the Valley of Gluttony? No problem, but you should go back first. 3 days later, I'll take Xiao Ye to the Valley of Gluttony myself. Chu Changsheng was happy when he heard the first part of Bufang's words. However, the latter part surprised him. Why do you want to go to the Valley of Gluttony? Bufang's eyes were indifferent. His eyes raked through Chu Changsheng as he grinned. Don't you want to take Xiao Ye away? Simple. I'll go to the Valley of Gluttony to challenge the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. If someone defeats me, I won't say anything. But if no one defeats me, then what qualifications do you have to question my cooking skills? Bufang raised his head, indifferently glancing at Chu Changsheng. His domineering aura surged. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.